So I ask that the Marshfield Zoning Board come to order for its June 14th, 2022 meeting and public hearings. I move that the board vote to open the public hearing. Not yet. Proceed agenda. So, Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals, Tuesday, June 14th, 2022 meeting. If you are the Zoom meeting, and it's a hybrid, if you're dialing in on a phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. So now I'm going to move that the board vote to open the public hearing of the application of 25-51 Elizabeth Barrett, trustee. The petitioner is seeking a variance in accordance with 305-10.11 for relief from 305-6.02 Table of Dimensional and Density Regulations of the Marshfield Municipal Code to facilitate the construction of a single-family dwelling on the property located at 36 Dog Lane, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel G16-02-04A and is located in the R1 zoning district.
Good evening.
Good evening.
James F. Creed Jr., representing the applicant. In light of the fact that my client did not have a street address or a new assessors parcel, the application that's before you is for 36 Dog Lane, which was the existing house. I don't know if the assessor's parcel is right, but based on town council's advice, we're going to withdraw and re-advertise with the correct address, which is to correct a newly issued address of 20 Dog Lane, right? Correct. And the correct, and make sure we have the correct assessor's parcel.
Okay,
Okay?
so
So I'm requesting.
make a motion to accept the withdrawal of 25-51 Elizabeth Barrett, trustee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Owen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Grover Hensel, aye.
Eddie Conway, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I move that the board vote to open the public hearing on the application of James J. Kilcoyne Jr. The petitioner is seeking a minor modification of a special permit, 14-24, to authorize the approximately 12-foot by 14-foot wood platform added to the timber walkway in a special permit in accordance with 305-13.01.c and 305-10.12 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to authorize the the less than 200 square foot ramada within the Inland Wetlands District on the property located at 51 North River Drive, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being parcel E20-03-06 and is located in the R1 zoning district, the Coastal Wetlands Overlay District, and the Inland Wetlands Overlay District. Can we hear from the applicant?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky, and I represent James Kilcoyne and the James Kilcoyne Jr. Living Trust. Mr. Kilcoyne is participating virtually on the Zoom. You will remember this dispute. It began with a notice of violation from the building commissioner, which was appealed to the board, and the board issued a decision on April 12th, which affirmed in part and denied in part the appeal. And we were requested to submit these two applications. The wood platform and the ramada were constructed in approximately 2016 within the Inland Wetlands District. None or neither of those structures will have any adverse effect on inland wetlands. The platform itself is 12 foot by 14 feet, and the ramada is essentially a roof supported by 4 5 by 5 inch wood posts. They're 5 inch by 5 inch wood posts. These structures are located entirely outside of the vegetated wetlands and entirely outside of the riverfront area, but are located within the current floodplain. You may remember that at the time they were constructed, there was some question whether the floodplain had extended that far, but we have conceded that issue. So the de minimis structures will have no effect on flooding, no effect on groundwater table, will not result in any health, safety, or public welfare issue, and we're asking the board to please authorize them after the fact to resolve these last disputes, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions from the board?
I actually do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So, the original application was 2014, correct? And that was for the one float and the ramp and the dock, correct?
There were a series of applications for the float, the gangway, and the long walkway. It's an extensive walkway. It's hundreds of feet long.
Right, so the original application that came through to us was in 2014,
Correct.
right? Okay, and then there was for one float, and then they came back later.
Correct. There were amendments to
for-
that.
Right, so for for the second float,
Correct.
right? So the 2014 application that went in and the site plan that we have. So with all of that, does Chapter 91 and DEP have to be, because it's a different application for the Ramada? And it was signed off in 2016, but that was without an as-built. So does that have to be sent into the Chapter 91 and DEP?
No, it's located outside of their Thailand's jurisdiction under Chapter 91.
So did the DEP, though, it doesn't have to go through there with the Ramada in there, an as-built and what have you? They don't need
No,
any
no,
of that stuff?
you need to understand that these structures are hundreds of feet away from the shoreline and outside of Chapter 91 jurisdiction, which is really limited to filled and flowed tidelands. So it's my opinion that we don't need to go back to DEP.
So you don't think you have to go back to DEP
No.
or Chapter 91?
Correct. The board will remember that Mr. Kilcoyne did go to the Conservation Commission
Right.
and obtained de minimis authorizations for this.
So when they were, and I just want to make sure I've got everything, just, so when that was authorized, so that was a verbal authorization that they got when that was approved, the Ramada, when that was
So
approved?
no, you may remember that the wood platform was constructed with a verbal authorization from Jay Wennemer, who was the conservation agent at the time.
Yeah,
The Ramada itself was not authorized.
okay.
But Mr. Kilcoyne has since obtained authorization. Again, we're talking about 25 inches, 100 square inches of impact to floodplain. Again, I recognize that the floodplain is a regulated wetland resource area, but it's not an alteration to actual vegetated wetlands.
Okay, so it's your belief that there's no need to send anything else to DEP or Chapter 91? Because of
Correct.
the completed project, which wasn't part of the first one?
It's simply outside of DEP's jurisdiction. So DEP waterways jurisdiction extends to filled and flowed tidelands only. And so this is far outside of any filled or flowed tidelands.
Is Bob coming tonight, or?
No, he's in another meeting.
Do you have anything?
I don't know. Anyone else from the board have anything to say on this?
I mean, just so we're clear, so the public knows, this Ramada is already in place, it's in existence. It was added on to the docking permitting process that it went through. This was an add-on. And he went with your description that the previous conservation officer said that he could do it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. With respect to the wood platform, again, the Ramada itself was not authorized.
Yeah. I saw it, and it's a seating area that expands the width of the dock in that particular area.
Correct.
So basically, with this, allowing this as a modification, it prevents you from having to go through this whole permitting process all over again. Is that correct?
So we have two requests for relief. One, a request for modification of the existing special permit for the wood platform, since that structure was authorized, but it was expanded.
Yep.
But we have a request for a new special permit solely for the Ramada. So there are two requests, two applications in front of the board.
Okay.
So when, in 2016, when you got your conservation certificate of completion, it doesn't mention the Ramada, which was already built. So can you just explain, like, why that wouldn't have been part of it, or do you know? I don't know if you know, I'm just asking.
I mean, I do not know why the certificate of compliance was issued at that time, but I can tell you that the Ramada has now been authorized by the Conservation Commission as a de minimis activity, so that now has been authorized.
As you can see, it is quite a long gangway there.
Yes, sir.
It's quite a stretch out there.
It is quite a structure.
And what we're talking about, just so the public knows, it's pretty much right there by the blue dot, correct?
Right there,
Yep.
yes.
So we're considerable.
As you can see, it's hundreds of feet landward
Yeah.
of mean high water, which would be the limit of Chapter 91 jurisdiction.
And DEP, you're saying?
That's correct. What you need to remember is DEP has different programs. And so Chapter 91 is the waterways program with its own. DEP obviously has jurisdiction under the State Wetlands Protection Act. That's a different group. And again, this has been authorized by the Conservation Commission under the State Wetlands Protection Act, as well as the Marshfield Wetlands Bylaw.
Andrew, do you have anything?
My only comment would be the same thing that I put in writing to the board earlier, which would be that I agree that the de minimis activity satisfies the local 505 regulations, but it does not address the Wetlands Protection Act. This is located in a wetlands resource area, not a buffer zone. It's in a deciduous wooded swamp. That's what I believe WS1 means. So it's in a resource area. So that's why I feel there should be some sort of addressing of the Wetlands Protection Act, because the de minimis activity said it was an alteration and fill in a bordering vegetated wetlands, and technically an alteration and fill in a wetlands resource area, by everything that I know, requires a filing with the Conservation Commission and the DEP.
So I'm sorry.
So the de minimis activity really only addresses the 505. It only addresses the local wetlands protection bylaw. It absolutely, it's not recognized by the state as anything. So that's the only thing, that's the only reason I've asked for some clarification and some certification or some proof that the DEP also feels that this is a minor modification that does not require any further permitting.
Thank you. All I can say is that the Conservation Commission has jurisdiction over the State Wetlands Protection Act, not the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Colcoin consulted the Conservation Commission regarding what was required to come into compliance, and he followed their instructions. I'm happy to bring this to Mr. Kilcoyne, who's obviously listening, but it's not an issue for this board.
Okay.
Go ahead. The only reason I disagree with that is because it's under the floodplain bylaw, which is under the zoning bylaw. And I'm the zoning enforcement officer, and I'm the floodplain administrator. And I'm to assure that all local, state, and federal permits are to be gotten for whatever development activities happen. So I have the local permit, that's the de minimis activity that addresses the local 505s. It does not address the Wetlands Protection Act because it's not recognized by the state. And it was described as an alteration and fill in a wetlands resource area that was other than land subject to coastal storm flowage in the de minimis activity approval. So all I'm asking for is the assurance that it is not required any further permitting, as it was something that was, that's a modification of a permit that was in a flood zone.
I have a respect, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Stewart.
I'm sorry, and a new structure in a flood zone, or a new development activity in a flood zone, I should say.
I have a respectful disagreement with Mr. Stewart regarding the scope of his responsibilities and jurisdiction as the floodplain coordinator. But you do have jurisdiction within the coastal, I'm sorry. You have zoning jurisdiction because this is within the inland coastal wetland district, which is essentially the floodplain, which is why we're in front of you for zoning authorization for this. Again, I'm happy to take that concern to Mr. Kilcoyne to consult with the Conservation Commission. If the Conservation Commission determines he needs some additional authorization, we will, of course, seek that. But again, a separate regulatory program and a separate regulatory body.
Well, I think where Andrew's coming from here, where this has become such an issue over Ramada, that Andrew, I'm sure, just wants to make sure that everything is documented this time. There's a lot of dates thrown around, there's a lot of verbal things, agreements that were made in the field that weren't documented anywhere. So it appears to me that Andrew just wants to be very thorough and make sure that all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed. So, whatever decision is made is finalized, and Mr. Kilcoyne and the town can get on with regular business.
I don't doubt Mr. Stewart's sincerity or his intentions.
Yeah, no, sure.
Anything else on the board?
Perhaps get Bob to weigh in on this before we make a decision.
Well, that's, if he's not here, I'm gonna ask. Anything from the public? Heidi, would you like for us to continue so that you can ask Bob?
I would like to just talk to him. Does Mr. Kilcoyne want to say anything? What was that?
I don't know.
So,
Is there any-
Andrew, what would you like to see to settle this in your mind?
I just want I want what's required in the bylaw. That's all I'm looking for.
Okay.
That's all I look for in the notice of violation. With the proper permits and the proper,
Andrew, can you see who's talking? Someone's not muted. Oh, thank you.
Again, all I can tell you is that Mr. Kilcoyne consulted with the Conservation Commission to find out what additional authorizations was required. And he submitted the applications that they requested, and they were satisfied with those applications. I don't know what more I can say on the issue. I guess Mr. Stewart's challenging the commission's determination as to what was required for compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act. Perhaps that's a question that should be asked of the Conservation Commission, not us.
So would the board like to continue this to get more information?
I just want to, I mean, I know Bob wrote what he had, but just with our questions and what have you, I just want to double check with him. Does anyone else have an issue with that?
So, So I'm gonna move that the board vote to continue the public hearing on the application of can't find it. James Kilcoyne Jr., 22-52, 51 North River Drive. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Cole and I
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
wasn't here for the whole thing, I'll pass.
Thank you, Adam.
Good night.
So now we have,
Right before we finish, it's continued to June 28th.
yeah,
is the
June
next meeting, or
28th,
July
sorry.
12th.
June 28th should be fine, right? How's the 28th?
Yeah,
Is Bob gonna be here on the 28th?
I have no idea.
What's,
Andrew will not be here on the
oh, Andrew, well, why don't we go to the 12th then? All right,
12th is a lot later.
okay, sure, that's fine.
Chris, the 12th?
The 12th, Chris. Sorry, Adam, we're going to continue to the 12th of July.
12th of July. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we have, I move that the board open the public hearing on the application of 22-53, Anthony Bergnoli and Amy Malone. Right here. The petitioners are seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-10.12 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 36-foot by 34-foot two-car garage with living space above the attached by a 12-foot by 10-foot upper-level connector to the existing dwelling on the property located at 55 Constellation Road, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel K11-20-6 and is located in the R3 zoning district. Hear from the applicant.
Hi, I'm Dick Rockwood. I did the architectural work for Mr. Bergnoli. We have already gone to conservation and have been approved for this garage. What we're doing is adding the garage to the house. And I meet all the height requirements. It's in a flood zone. It'll have smart fence in the foundation to meet the FEMA requirements. The existing house is there. It's elevated to the proper flood zone height. And the garage meets all the FEMA regulations and all the zoning setbacks. The reason I'm here actually is the back end of the main house is non-conforming, but the structure is conforming. The new proposed structure is conforming. So if you go down Constellation Road, that's at 9.9 feet in the rear of the house. And then the side, actually the side conforms, 15-foot side. Oh, in the front of the house doesn't.
That's actually a front, Jim.
Oh, right, it is Constellation, yes.
This is the non-conforming as well, it's the
Right.
9.6.
Right.
But he's correct, the whole new thing will all be
Right.
conforming within the setbacks.
So you okay with that, Andrew?
Yep, as far as setbacks go, I'm totally okay with that.
All right. Have any questions from the board?
Nope.
Any questions from the public? So
Has
What?
does planning need to comment, or do they have any comments? Do they have any comments at all?
Planning only had two comments.
Okay. And do they need any
They weren't on that.
floodplain permitting stuff at all?
Andrew said he's okay with
Is
it.
all set with that? Andrew?
Andrew, no floodplain issues?
Just what I wrote on, what I gave as written comments. you
Yeah.
know, As far as the
We
requirements.
saw that.
We're also in that inland
You want
wetland
to read
district.
those out? Do you want me to read those all out, or?
I don't have them printed.
You can if you want. I mean, we have them.
Sorry.
2253.
My comments were that they should fill out a floodplain permit application with the building department as it's proposed to be in an AE9 special flood hazard area and with a design flood elevation of 10 and is subject to the requirements of the floodplain bylaw. It's considered to be a lateral addition that is structurally connected to the original structure. The original structure is non-conforming on its front and rear setbacks, but the proposed addition complies with all setback requirements. The original structure was modified in 1999 to be elevated in compliance with FEMA regulations, and the enclosure below DFE, which is the design flood elevation, should be inspected to ensure it is still compliant with floodplain regulations. Enclosures below the DFE are allowed to be used solely for the parking of vehicles, building access, and limited storage, and must contain flood openings that must remain accessible and unblocked. The proposed addition will have an enclosure below DFE that is proposed to be compliant with the allowed uses. Any materials used below the DFE must be flood-resistant materials as defined in FEMA Technical Bulletin 2 and 780 CMR Section R322.1.8. And the first habitable floor must be separated from the enclosure below flood elevation with a fire-rated door compliant with 780 CMR. This project will require a stamped and construction drawings, a building permit, proposed during construction and final elevation certificates, a non-conversion agreement, a final as-built, and a certificate of occupancy.
So will that be all generated from the building permit and the stuff that you enforce?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we don't have to include that in our decision, or we do?
As far as I think I've read it into the record, I don't believe you have to write it
Okay.
into this.
Thank you.
I'd like a copy of that, though.
Okay,
Would be great.
yeah. Anything else from the board?
I think it might be helpful to write it into the decision, but as long as they file a floodplain permit, they'll get all that information.
Right.
Okay. Anything from the audience? So I'm gonna make a motion to close 22-53, Anthony Brignoli and Amy Malone, 55 Constellation Road. Do I have a second?
Corbin has a second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corbin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Corbin has the aye.
Heidi Conley, aye.
Chris Pelzer, aye.
Do we have any discussion on this, or? Everyone good?
I'm good. Pretty much everything he said, that's all gonna come on the
it's-
building.
Right, so it comes in
process.
his end of it. So I can, I move that the board vote to grant the special permit for 22-53, Anthony Brignoli and Amy Malone, 55 Constellation Road. Do I have a second? Do I have to include anything in there? That's good. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corbin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Corbin has the aye.
Heidi Conley, aye.
Chris Pelzer,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gonna move along to 22-54, Bruce Pisano. I move that the board vote to open the public hearing for the application. The petitioner is seeking a site plan approval in accordance with 305-12.02 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to replace the lighting fixtures on 3 of the 5 existing light poles. Replace the poles and the fixtures on the other 2. Install 5 new poles and install new and replacement wall-mounted and canopy fixtures on the property located at 934 Plain Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being parcel C10-03-01 and is located in the B2 zoning district. How you doing?
Bruce Bisbano, Bisbano and Associates Architects, representing Bank of America.
Okay,
This project is basically part of the bank's exterior lighting program for upgrades for security purposes throughout the state of Massachusetts. They are basically trying to achieve 2-foot candles of light at the ground surface within 50-foot radius of ATMs, night deposits, and entrances. So this is part of that program. The request here is to add 3 new poles and replace 2 others, and then we're replacing all the lighting. Everything would be new LED, full cutoff, light fixture, color temperature is 4,000 Kelvin, and I think that's really it. It's a very straightforward project. We have only one area where we have some overlap on the photometric plan we exceed 1 foot candle off property for about 2 feet along the front of the building. That's a very small light level, so, in a very small area. I'll answer any questions now.
Is there any questions from the board? Andrew, do you have anything on this?
No, I looked over this and I didn't have any issues. They presented a lot of information as far as the type of lighting, presented a lot of different information here about what the downcast lighting would look like, especially at night driving by. I thought that it was a lot, enough, plenty suitable for the board to give an opinion.
You got anything from the board?
I am good.
Do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm good.
Anything from the audience? All right, so gonna make a motion that we close 22-54 Bruce Bizzano, 934 Plain Street. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Brian Lindsay, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Chris Mazos,
So I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the site plan, give the site plan approval. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Corwin, Lindsay, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Chris Mazos, aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is Christopher Regan here? So I move that the board vote to open the public hearing on the application of 22-55 Christopher Regan. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-10.12 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to raise the existing dwelling and construct a new 2-story, 38-foot by 29-foot dwelling on the same footprint with a 2-car garage underneath, a 33-foot by 24-foot addition on the property located at 272 Summer Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being parcel G16-08-01 and is located in the R1 zoning district. Go ahead and identify yourself for the record.
I'm Chris Regan. I'm the property owner and also a general contractor doing the work on the house. We've been through a lot on this property. We've owned it for about 4 years. We bought it with the intent of remodeling it and saving the antique building. It's just become apparent that that's really not possible. It's decayed, really. There's very little reusable timbers in the house, unfortunately. We did originally have a permit for this, or we have actually a building permit for putting an addition on the back and remodeling it. But it's really come that we can't really do anything else but take the house down. However, what we really want to do is we really want to save the house. So we want to rebuild a new house to look exactly like the old house in the same footprint and reuse the existing chimney as our benchmark for the first floor and build up from that. So with our original drawings, we want to build exactly what we've been given a permit for already, but we just want to do it new. And if we don't, I believe the reason we need a special permit is the setback from the front yard. And if we go off that setback, then we won't be able to put that chimney in the center of the house, so it would kind of ruin our idea. I guess it's up to you guys.
Is that where it currently is?
Yes. The chimney itself is in great shape. The fireplace itself is not in great shape, but we can rebuild it and make it look like original.
Andrew, do you have anything with this?
So I'm trying to bring up the original plot plan. I think this might be it here. This is it, yes. And
Yeah.
it shows, so this is the one that shows they have a 38-foot setback from the street line. And this is, so on a corner lot, any lot has to conform with the front yard setbacks, which in an R1 district is 40 feet. So obviously they're non-conforming on this side, but they're well over the required square footage and everything else. So the existing dwelling was going to just be worked on, and they were going to be replacing the existing foundation. That's why it never had to go to zoning for the original permit. But now, as far as completely demolishing and reconstructing, that's why they're coming before the ZBA. I don't have any problems. Chris has been really great working with throughout this whole process. He really has tried to save this structure. He worked with, I mean, they even had a TV show that was going to come in at one point and try to work with him on this project, and that unfortunately fell through. And he's just worked with a ton of different things to try to save every aspect of this, and ultimately, you know, with a lot of these old structures, when it comes down to it, when you're trying to bring it up to the standards from 2022, you just got to move on from the old construction, and that's what Chris is doing here.
Anything from the board?
Nancy, do we have a deed?
I believe we do.
Okay, just wasn't in the
I just may not have included it.
Okay.
Anything from the audience? Seeing that there isn't, I move that the board close the public hearing for 22-55 Chris Regan, 272 Summer Street. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Cohen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Robert Hensley, aye.
Oh, Heidi Tommy, aye.
Chris Mills, aye.
I'm going to make a motion that we accept 22-55 Christopher Reagan, 272 Summer Street, the special permit. And do we all agree that it has the 1 to 10, meets the 1 to 10 of our non-conforming use?
Yes.
And so, do I have a second to approve?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor of approving?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Cohen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Robert Hensley, aye.
Heidi Tommy, aye.
Chris Mills, aye.
Thank you. What?
Any conditions?
I don't think we had any. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Move that the board open a public hearing of 2256 Arthur Leggy. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-902 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to relocate 2 existing 6x8 non-conforming sheds to conforming locations and after-the-fact permitting of a previously approved deck that was built after the permit expired on the property located at 14 E Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel M050805 and is located in the R3 zoning district.
Good evening. I'm Rick Savant with Stenbeck and Taylor. I've been doing the survey work on this project. As you stated, Mr. Chair, we've got a couple of items that we need to get cleaned up on this. We have 2 existing sheds that are on the property. They're shown there as existing shed number 1 is at the rear of the house. That's its existing location. Existing shed number 2 is actually underneath the deck in what used to be an old garage, a drive-under garage, which is now just open area below a deck. There's a shed in there. We're proposing, they're currently non-conforming, of course, being too close to the structure. We're proposing to relocate them out back behind the house in the position shown, shed 1 and 2. We make the 10 feet off the building. There's really not a lot of area to fit these in and make them comply except for that location. So we've got the 2 back there. They're going to be relocated to that position. They comply with the setback off the building and the sidelines of the property and the rear line in that fashion, 3 feet apart. The second thing that we're here for tonight, as you stated, the project was previously approved in 2014 for some addition work, a half-story up above, an extensive deck that went around the house, was all approved through Concom and through the ZBA. The applicant didn't build this much smaller deck than what was approved. But unfortunately, built the deck after the permit had expired. It had expired, so wasn't aware, but he did the construction on the deck. It is a much smaller deck. The original deck was approved at 857 square feet. The one that is there today that was built is 478 square feet, and it's as shown on the plan there. The original deck used to wrap behind the house where that walkway is and connected to the sunroom area on the other side of the home there, which didn't get built. So we're here to, after the fact, permit that deck that's as it's shown on the plan.
On that lower deck, correct?
I'm sorry, sir?
That lower deck right there?
Yes,
that one?
that's the existing deck that's there. Yep, that is correct.
Okay.
And those are really the two items that we're here tonight for, sheds and that deck.
Andrew, do you have anything?
So this is, like I said in the email, this is, in response to a floodplain violation. Sorry. I'll just read this out. This application is in response to a floodplain and zoning violation for the installation of 2 non-compliant sheds without permits. These are permitted uses in the R1 district. Accessory structures are permitted to maintain 10-foot setbacks, and this proposes a 3-foot setbacks between the 2 sheds. If the sheds were structurally connected to one another, this would eliminate the setback issue. So that's one thing. As far as the deck that was built, I'll just bring up a permit or a picture here. So this is, that's the deck as it currently exists. The original special permit that was issued by the ZBA in 2015, I believe, was to include a wraparound deck that would come around through this area and connect with stairs up to access all this deck. And there might have been a little bit of difference where these stairs weren't here, but they were kind of over here. So there was a little bit of modification. However, the original special permit was for this whole addition on this side. There was going to be a cupola, there was going to be a little screened-in porch, and then the wraparound deck. They only ended up doing really this addition as far as the special permit. They had the building permit, they closed it out, and then it all expired, and a few years later, they ended up doing the deck. This was all without permits and inspections. So that's to be taken into consideration. I felt that it actually needed a variance because of its proximity to the front lot line and not just a special permit, but they applied for a special permit instead of a variance.
Anything from our board?
How did this come to light? How did this come up?
It was brought to my attention from the homeowner and, right, that he had some violations out there that we needed to, I worked with Andrew on it also, but that's how it came to my attention through the homeowner and through the building department. I did.
Are you asking me how it came out, Larry?
I'm sorry?
Were you asking me how it came about?
Yeah, how this came about, correct.
There was a neighbor who had, who was trying to close out some permitting on her property and brought to light some issues during the course of that inspection on her property of some neighboring properties, and that's how it came to light. It was pretty obvious when I just looked into the next yard that there were sheds that were non-compliant. When I drove down the street on the way to do the other inspection, I saw a shed underneath a deck. this shed. So this shed is underneath this deck,
Sure.
which the deck, quite honestly, is the thing that's built illegally. So, without a permit. So that was the thing, that when I was driving to the inspection, I saw the shed underneath the deck. So that's kind of what first tipped me off to anything. Then I
Okay.
went and did the inspection. There was a complaint about, the neighbor's stuff. I looked at that, I saw that there was a shed in the backyard, and I had seen the shed underneath the deck. I went back, I looked at the property and investigated. I saw that there had been a special permit issued. I looked at the building permit information. I looked at the aerial photography to track the timeline of when things happened, and that's how I determined that the deck had been built well after the building permit had been closed out, after the special permit had lapsed, and that's that.
Thank you.
So back to the question, why variance, why
What,
special permit?
I will say one thing. The applicant has, I issued him a notice of violation on this last year, and the applicant has done absolutely everything to comply, worked with the Conservation Commission, has worked with the ZBA, has worked with the building department, has kept me updated. Even he let me know like when he's leaving the state, to go out of town, just to keep me updated on how the process is, and totally wants to comply and do whatever the board deems is necessary. So they've been very easy to work with.
So did you inspect this deck at all? Is it,
We have not done any inspections on the deck because we haven't issued a building permit, so we're not going to issue a building permit until the ZBA renders a decision.
and if ZBA renders that decision, the building permit is inspected, you'll inspect the deck? I mean, a building permit is issued, you'll inspect this deck?
Yep, and so and also the owner has agreed to make any necessary repairs to be in compliance with the building code. He's employed local contractors who have come in and spoken with me and to understand any necessary repairs, so he's well aware of all that
Okay,
and couldn't comply.
good.
So, Brian, you had a question about the variance. I didn't see that it needed a variance. I'm not disagreeing with Andrew, but I felt that it met the same criteria that the deck was issued a special permit the first time. It's in the same position. It's actually smaller. I just felt that.
I
Yep.
think you might be right, Rick, and I forgot that we talked about this. The setback is 9 feet. The requirement is 15 feet, and any deck over, well, that's why I thought it did require a variance, actually, Rick, was
Right,
because
it's over 4 feet.
any deck over 4 feet can only encroach within half the setback, 7.5 feet. So that's where I thought that it needed the,
Variance, but, so it says the 9 feet, so it's fine.
yeah, because it's 9 feet. And you can only encroach within 2 feet above 4 feet. Anything below 4 feet can go up to half the setback, which would be 7.5. But anything above 4 feet can only encroach 2 feet into the setback, which would be 13 feet.
Okay.
So bottom line, he's good with this.
Right.
But probably, based on what I just saw on the video, I think what Dick Rockwood just told Rick Saban was that's a pre-existing non-conforming situation, and that's why it's a special permit.
Yeah.
It's only 4 feet off the street. That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, that was what I was just gonna say.
All right. So do we have any questions from the audience? Anything from the board? Gonna move to close 22-56 Arthur Leggy, 14 East Street. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye. Oh, sorry.
Mark Owen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Robert Hensley, aye.
Heidi Klum,
Chris Bell's aye.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve 22-56 Art Pelagi special permit on 14 East Street. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Owen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Robert Hensley, aye.
Heidi Klum, aye.
Chris Bell's aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Who
you.
is Dylan Gallagher here?
No, they can't be here.
Okay.
But I'm Steve Moran, Mr. Chairman, I did the survey.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we open 22-58 Dylan Gallagher.
Oh, yep.
The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct an addition where the existing sunroom is, the dimensions will go from 6 foot by 17 foot 6 to 12 foot 8 by 17 foot 6 on a property located at 216 Texas Street, which is further identified in the assessor's maps as being on parcel J11-01-37 and is located in R2 zoning district. Go ahead, he identified himself, right?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. I'm Steve Moran, this is Matt, the builder. I did the survey. As you said, the petitioners can't be here. They just welcomed, I don't know, their first or second child, so hence the reasoning for putting the addition on. You can see the solid green block is the addition that they just would like to bump out a little jog in the house and fill it in. It is the hatched area is pre-existing.
Yep.
And the addition will go on a side that will not impact the setbacks in an adverse way. So, barring your questions, that's pretty much it. Pretty much my summary.
You have anything, Andrew?
I totally agree. It's a quarter lot with a pre-existing non-conforming structure and lot, and the addition will not make it any more non-conforming.
Okay. Anything from the audience? Anything from the board?
Good.
I don't even have, I don't have a pack. Nancy, do you have a pack? I don't have a pack. You don't have a pack.
Should have that one.
I don't have it. Do you have it?
What are you looking for?
It's the packet. So, did you read Bob's? Did you read Bob's one?
Yeah.
It's Bob's note. Small one.
It's only 2 more weeks. Only another week.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what did I do? Did I make a motion to close this?
Just make sure you say that it's,
No, I don't think we closed it.
All right. So I'm going to make a motion that we,
because
oh,
the
yeah.
public does it.
You know
so
what,
make sure-
Nancy, it is 2258 on this.
That's a typo. That
Oh, okay. Well, the next one is 59?
2259.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to make a motion that we close 2258 Dylan Gallagher, 216 Texas Street. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Owen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Robert Hensley, aye.
Heidi Klum, aye.
Chris Bell's aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
And I'm going to make a motion that we accept it. We all agree that the 10 following general conditions are met by this, and we don't have any conditions.
Well, aren't we supposed to have the as-built, a certificate of occupancy and building permit for each one?
Yeah, but that, I mean,
They wanted that in the decisions, to be in the decisions.
they want that in the decisions, okay. So, What was it, Nancy?
As-built.
An as-built
permit,
building permit,
Certificate of occupancy.
secret of occupancy are to be included. Those are the special conditions. Do I have a second to approve this?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Roy Hensey, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Steve Feeny, aye.
Is Joshua Gray here?
Thank you.
Thank you.
No? Lynn Labrador?
I think Joshua Gray is Dick Rockwood.
What about Lynn Labrador?
Yeah,
Isn't he with her too?
he was and he wasn't. Her builder should be here.
Who, Lynn Labrador?
Yeah, he came in today to make sure he was on.
This goes with,
Do you have Cambridge Street?
Yes.
So like a motion to open, we don't have to read this out.
Yeah, it's already been read into the
Thank
record.
goodness. 22-26 Joshua Gray. Go.
I'm Dick Rockwood here for Joshua Gray. We have an existing house. Is Andrew going to pull up that site plan?
Oh, you already read, sorry, you already read it into the record.
Yeah, this has already been, this is a continued hearing.
Apologies.
Yeah, if you could pull up the site plan?
I will, I was waiting for.
Okay. We're not changing our footprint. We have a non-conforming structure, and we're putting it has a second story over 3/4 of the house with a farmer's porch on the front, and we're completing the whole thing with a full second story. The second story is just a slope roof, and it's a narrow house, so there's not a lot of room. We're just bringing up full walls and making it a second story on the non-conforming structure. There's a photo of it up above on the site plan. It's about 42 feet by 20. I think you have the architecturals. Yep, there they are. So it's only that 8-foot front that doesn't have a second story. You can see the dotted line on the left of the section there. So we're just going to complete the whole thing with a little more volume on the existing second floor. That's what we're requesting. No change in footprint.
Andrew, you have anything?
Nope, it's just an existing non-conforming dwelling, they're gonna fill it out.
Anything from the board? Anything from the public? Seeing that there isn't, I move that the board vote to close the public hearing for Joshua Gray, 147 Cambridge Street. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Roy Hensey, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Chris Wallace, aye.
Steve Feeny, aye.
Make a motion that we approve 22-26 Joshua Gray, 147 Cambridge Street. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
Of course, this would be including, we agree with the 10 special conditions on there. And do I have to add, what was it again?
The as-built building
As-built,
permit.
certificate of occupancy and building permit.
As-built occupancy and building permit. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Roy Hensey, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Chris Wallace, aye.
Steve Feeny, aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Are
you.
you representing Lynn Labrador
Yes,
as
I
well?
am.
So 22-49 Lynn Labrador, 111 Ashburton Avenue. Do you have that, Andrew?
Yep.
Go back to them because they're all big. So this is gonna take a while.
Brian, the builder is here also for this,
Okay.
if you need him.
Does he want to come up front?
If you need them.
Did you read it? Oh, you did?
This has already been read in, I just have to
Oh, that's
announce
right,
it.
too, it has, I'm sorry, yeah. So I'm Dick Rockwood, here to continue with the hearing. There's a sketch in here, this is an existing non-conforming house, non-conforming on the front, non-conforming on the left side, and it has an existing second floor on it. Very limited headroom in the stairwell going up, and the back portion of the house where it says the 12.4 dimension there, where that does not have a second floor, so we're gonna make that and extend that as a second floor. It's like a 12 by 12 area that we're gonna add on to, and that's pretty much a sketch of what we're adding on. We're not changing the footprint at all.
Okay. Andrew, you have anything?
Same thing as the last one.
Straightforward. Anything from the board? Anything from the audience? Seeing that there's none, I make a motion to close 2249 Lynn Labrador, 111 Ashburton Avenue. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Wallen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Ansley, aye.
Heidi Coleman.
Gonna make a motion to approve 2249 Lynn Labrador, 111 Ashburton Ave, special permit. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
This would also include that we agree with the 10 findings and a building permit,
As-built.
as-built
Occupancy.
occupancy. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Wallen, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Rob Ansley, aye.
Heidi Coleman.
Chris Fellows, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
All right, so now we go back to the, where was the 51? It was the Conleys or something.
Conley, yeah,
Yeah.
2257.
Hold on. Yeah, Conley Brothers. Are you here?
We are.
All right. 2257, Conley Brothers Incorporated. Petitioner is seeking a special permit under 305-1012 and site plan approval under 305-12-02 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for a for-profit educational facility use pursuant to the Marshfield Municipal Code 305-504 on the property located at 51 Commerce Way. It's further identified on the assessor's maps as being parcel E09-01-15, E09-01-63, and E09-01-64, and is located in the I-1 zoning district, and such other further relief pursuant to Marshfield Municipal Code is necessary. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Attorney Steve Gard for the applicant. With me this evening is Brian Taylor, of course, of Stenbeck and Taylor, the project engineer and survey company, Steve Connolly and Thad Minshaw from Connolly Brothers, Ryan Plosker from New England Academy, and Jack Gillen, the traffic expert that we've used, a consultant. So before you this evening is an application for site plan approval and as well as a special permit under the zoning bylaw for a for-profit educational facility at 51 Commerce Way in the industrial park. The applicant proposes that New England Academy has partnered with New England Academy, a private for-profit educational facility devoted to special education, providing students the academic challenge and clinical support they need to succeed in school. They have a location in Beverly previously, so they are well-suited to be the operator of the school at our new location. The school serves grades 6 through 12 with identified social or emotional disabilities. New England Academy provides a rigorous academic curriculum coupled with school-based therapeutic support and intervention with a safe and supportive environment. The applicant proposes to construct, operate pursuant to Massachusetts Municipal Code, Marshfield Municipal Code, and state regulations such as school at the 51 Commerce Way. The site is approximately 6.4 acres currently vacant land, and when it fully developed, it will eventually be fully developed for the applicant's needs. The applicant proposes to develop the site with 61 parking spaces, a travel way for drop-off and pickup, a ball field, and construct a 28,050 square foot building with a gymnasium. 13 classrooms, a science lab, library, fitness room, dance, yoga studio, college resource center, art studio, music recording studio, as well as an outdoor green spaces and a student courtyard. The resulting development will meet or exceed the zoning bylaw requirements and performance standards. The school will be open 198 days a year and will have a typical holiday school vacation and break schedule as a public school, with a maximum student capacity of 80. This particular service provided to these students is heavily regulated and only allows 8 students per classroom. The school does not provide transportation for its students. Around 8:10 in the morning, the students will arrive via parent or guardian drop-off. Self-drive, our older students will self-drive, and then, or some students will arrive in small buses or minivans from other communities. Those minivans will typically have one stop and pick up in the community and come straight to our school. There's no bus stops and no roving buses as far as transportation goes. The entire morning drop-off will be basically about 10 or 15 minutes, from 8:10 to about 8:20. And then dismissal is around 2 p.m., typically over by 2:20. The school's maximum capacity of students is likely to be achieved by year 3, so the applicant is expecting that the first year there will be about 30 students in the school. Drop-off and pickup will be done entirely upon school property. And there are no after-school activities, there are no summer programs, no weekend programs. During the summer break, while the school is basically closed, there is typically only 2 to 3 staff members at the school. The lot itself is relatively oddly shaped. The topography varies in different areas. That's why the building is sort of set up on a plateau, where in order to accommodate a handicap-accessible parking lot, accessible routes to and from the school, etc., and various drainage needs. Obviously, the citizens of Marshfield and surrounding towns will benefit greatly from the applicant's proposal in that they will have the ability to accept students requiring a learning environment that meets the needs both academically and clinically, which cannot sometimes be achieved in other school settings. The plan provides 61 parking spaces, only 52 are required based on the calculations. It should be noted that the gymnasium does not have a stadium seating inside. So even though it counts for a large portion of the building, there's no actual seating. There's no locker rooms or anything like that. The plan provides for a 20-foot traveled way circulating around the parking area to allow for vehicles to smoothly travel in one direction for drop-off and pickup. And also provides a center island to delineate the enter and exit portion at the single point access curb cut. The other thing, there's one other thing that I had. It does provide for a permanent 8-foot fire lane in front of the building, right adjacent to the pickup and drop-off, which would serve for the basically loading and unloading as well. This school does not provide a kitchen. They do have a cafeteria, but it does not provide any cooking devices other than, countertop microwaves for the older kids to be able to heat their lunches. Students are expected to bring their own lunches, so there is no major deliveries from, the food delivery trucks. The deliveries at the school are typically WB Mason, UPS, and Amazon, typical school supplies. So there's no need for big trucks loading and unloading dock in that regard. So in your packet, that's basically an overview, but in your packet is, of course, a plan set for the school prepared by Stenbeck and Taylor, which includes the existing conditions, proposed developed site conditions, as well as a photometric plan and a landscape plan as well. I do have with me, I sent over, last day or so, I sent over the cut sheets for the lighting fixtures. They're basically, the parking lot has some pole-like fixtures. They're downcast, hooded, typical parking lot lighting. And the exterior fixtures are the bronze landscape uplighting for trees and shrubs and things like that. Nothing you folks haven't seen before as well. The architectural renderings that we have provide for some textured exterior surfaces. This is the cut sheet for that. We have brought physical samples so that you can actually see, touch, and feel the actual the cobbles that are going to be used to enhance the exterior of the structure. So let's see, what else do we have? Building elevations and da-da-da-da. So I think that the best, if we could, Andrew, Who's controlling this tonight? Andrew is? Oh, Andrew.
No, I'm here, Steve.
Thanks, bud. Could you put up let's start with the elevation so we can take a look at what the outside of the building looks like so everybody can get a look at that. Then we'll go back to the site plan and have Brian just give us a quick overview of the site plan itself.
All right, I'm gonna attempt to find this. I'm not exactly sure which one it is.
It might be in the one that's marked like the whole application itself. Yeah.
Application package.
Yeah, that one. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Should be in that one, I think. Also, the project narrative as well as Forms 2C and Form 2D are also provided where we've addressed each of the performance standards for both the special permit and for the site plan approval to help Nancy prepare the decision.
I do have access to all of that.
Great.
All the findings and facts.
Thank you. So as you can see, the outside exterior, this would be the drop-off and pickup side of the building here. The front of the building is situated where Andrew has the cursor right now, and the traffic flow would be from your right to left in and out of the building to get people in and out of the parking lot. This is the floor plan, a layout. As you can see, it has the classrooms, the offices, the gymnasium on the left. In the big U-shaped in the middle, you'll see in the landscape plan that that's a courtyard for students to recreate, teachers to be able to get outdoors in the protected area within the sort of protected by the buildings in a sense like that. The students will be directed not through that side door. They will walk up the sidewalk and then they will come around through the front door where there will be the reception desk, as you can see the rounded. So each student would be greeted and seen by staff before they enter the school. Obviously, at drop-off and pickup, there will be staff members out on the sidewalk helping with the traffic flow and greeting students and then helping them get on their way home. I think we have a bit better picture of the board, of the elevation. Can we, yeah, Thad, if you could just pull out that nice picture of the elevation of the side of the building, it'll give us more robust color and whatnot. So I don't know if we have that in there, Andrew. I think it's part of one of the other documents. And I can't remember which one, but that's what the school will likely look like.
Could you stand up and show the audience, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's your photometric plan.
No offside light.
Yeah, no, obviously the standards are complied with, no light pollution, no light will leave the premises, et cetera. That's the roof side, that would be the roofing, it's sort of a metal roof, a corrugated metal roof. We have a sample of that as well, typically used now in these more modern buildings. Has a nice sort of, look to it. Breaking up the facade obviously will be like clapboards in the stonework as well as other elements to make it architecturally interesting.
The gym is elevated.
No, the gym is actually this.
Floor level, but it's not a second.
It's just open.
Just open space, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah.
Elevated
yeah,
roof line, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's what you meant. I thought you meant the floor of the gym was elevated. It's all single level, but you're right, yeah, it would obviously have a two-story.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
but it
only
would,
in that section.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and it would obviously be below the height requirement. Goes to that. So why don't you pull up the, if you would, please, the
Sheet 3.
yeah, sheet 3 of the plan set, Andrew?
I have traffic impact assessment, 10-year storm report, stormwater analysis report, 25 year storm report.
It should be the developed site plan, the site plan. It should,
I don't really have anything that shows the plans that's in the file here.
You dropped them off.
I don't think,
Yeah,
did you send a PDF though, or just a big?
no, PDF.
yeah.
I think
Well,
I
that's
got
all
a
right. I
PDF.
brought,
It's okay, we have them on the
sheets.
board too, I think. We have full-size plans, but
Yep.
Brian has a smaller version here. If you would put up,
Anything anybody can email to me real quick, Steve, and I can.
let me do that while Brian is, yeah, let me try that.
yep.
While you show the board.
Yeah, let me do that. Let me see if I can dig that up. I definitely have it. I actually have it up here.
Andrew, it would have come from admin@stenbeckandtaylor.com?
Yep, all over down here.
Okay.
Do other things, so.
I think you should have it in 2 seconds here. This is the one, right, Brian?
Yep.
Plan set, rave,
Full
final.
plan set.
I think that's the one.
Yep.
Coming your way now. Let me just make sure that's the one, though.
Effective date 5/16.
Yeah, let me just make sure that's the one. This is it right here. Yeah, 5/16. I just sent it to you, Andrew. You should have it in a second.
I always bring paper just in case. I always bring paper just in case.
You're looking at this page right here?
Yeah.
That one with the
Yep. Sheet 3.
infiltration systems?
Sheet 3 is the one. Sheet, I'm sorry.
That's 4. This
Yeah,
is, this is,
Sheet 3 is the kind of simplified.
yeah, sheet 3. Gotcha. Okay.
Sheet 3.
This is from the council's notes here. So there is no bylaw regulating what they're doing, right? Is that-
Yeah, we just enacted one. We just voted it in a town meeting, so it's not been approved by the Attorney General.
Okay. You thought I wasn't paying attention, huh?
Something got anything,
Well,
sorry
this will
guys.
need peer review of the whole night, you know. Get continued.
What are they looking for, an open date next year or 2 years?
Do you want to start explaining to the board they have to reduce copies?
Some interesting school.
Yeah, if you want, what, Andrew, is it okay if we start to explain? The board does have reduced copies, the small ones that we sent in.
It's fine, really, I mean, the board and the public that are there are the ones that matter. I mean,
Okay.
anything that's available online is, oh, we just came in, sorry, Steve.
That's okay. I'm sorry you didn't have it. My apologies.
This is,
Jump down to page 3, that's the one that shows the developed site plan. That the one you want?
That's 4. Page 3, if you could.
One more back.
Yep. Bless you. That's still sheet 4, I think.
thank you, sorry about that.
Okay. Oh, we can use that sheet.
Yeah.
So sheet 4 is the, what we would call the meat and potatoes plan for fellows like Common Construction and myself and everyone involved in the actual construction of the site. It depicts, however, everything that Steve mentioned. Steve did his usual eloquent job and comprehensive job on presenting everything. The whole site development starts at the driveway grade entrance. We set the driveway to maximize site distance in both directions. That grade, we then grade the parking lot so that it's ADA compliant. And it also is negative graded to catch drainage within the parking lot area. So the elevation of everything in the parking lot, that sets the slab elevation. When you see there's quite a bit of contouring going on this plan, quite a bit of proposed contours, as you can see, the reasons being that we need to have suitable access. We also, I met with Tommy Corbo, the deputy fire chief. We templated out the ladder truck, which is our largest piece of firefighting equipment on the parking lot layout. Again, that's kind of where the starting point on the site development was. That being the case, as Steve mentioned, we are a single-story building, with the exception of a two-story height, but not 2 active stories on the gymnasium, as you can see. We have a ADA-compliant driveway, which is an emergency vehicle access driveway in case anybody ever had an event on the ball field, which is set, as you can see, at a lower elevation. That's a walkway grade, so it's not even a 12-to-1, it's a 1-in-20 slope, very gradual slope. That'll be surfaced with grass pave, which is a product, a system that we've used down at Plymouth Plantation for engineering these types of access where you don't want them to be a paved road and detract from the overall appearance of the property, but still provide a suitable base. And I also reviewed that with Tom Corbo.
Mr. Taylor, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. So as Steve already mentioned, the parking, we're in excess of the number of spaces required. We have provided a screened dumpster. Also, as Steve mentioned, the fire lane has been provided along the entire east side of the building, adjoining the 24-foot access drive. So we have a 32-foot operable space on that side of the building. We did an extensive stormwater analysis report, our usual product, that's the Bible. This will be on site at all times. This includes pollution prevention control programs, erosion control programs. There'll be designated responsible parties for each part of the site development, from construction to finished occupancy. All of that's contained inside the Bible. The drainage systems, those areas that Andrew has the cursor on, that first roof recharge system captures all of the roof runoff. We have implemented, frankly, more low-impact design components that we are mandated to do by stormwater analysis, that we pick up the runoff from the roof along, there's a trench drain shown in blue along the perimeter of the building, which then comes out to the parking lot and discharges into the roof recharge system, which is a very extensive system. That we have grass swales that we've implemented. We have deep sump catch basins 4 feet below the flow line out. DEP likes those because it maximizes the amount of stilling time that you get in the resultant runoff. And then the bottom of that infiltration drain, it's a 3-foot by 4-foot infiltration drain wrapped in Marafi fabric, and there's a perforated pipe at the bottom of it, which will transmit the water. So really, the likelihood of the roof recharge system under the paved area seeing a 100-year storm is minimal. So we're over-designed in that regard. The parking lot area, we captured all of the drainage for the parking lot area through two catch basins on the north side of the parking lot. And then we piped those to a water quality inlet structure. It's a proprietary storm scepter structure, which is to separate and clean up any of the runoff resulting from the parking lot. Those basins are also deep sump catch basins. For belts and suspenders, we also have an isolation valve. So if there was a spill and it somehow made it through the storm scepter and was threatening to get into the leaching area, we can isolate the leaching area. So that handles all the stormwater on the upper part of the site development. The lower ball field part of the property, that has its own infiltration system with double frame and grate catch basins. These are the same swales. We were asked to redesign all the ball fields for the town to give right below us, and by the Boys and Girls Club to give it adequate drainage. So this is the same system we implemented there. Double frame and grate catch basins, piped into a manhole, and then into a groundwater recharge structure. Everything has been done to store a 100-year storm basis. In 2004, when we did the original subdivision, we had captured everything. You guys probably know there's a big 5-acre detention basin down on the back of Enterprise Drive. For every other lot except these parcels and the one either side of it, we were able to get the drainage out and treat it in one big basin. These lots in the 2004 plan were mandated to be handled on their own.
Right.
So we have no need to connect to any offsite systems. The landscaping plan, I think Andrew had up, is a very detailed plan. And we also have the benefit of having seen what they have in situ on their own existing site. And they've figured out what works and what doesn't work. The photometric plan, as you saw, shows no offsite lighting impacts. And really, that's about it for the site. Pretty straightforward site. We have Jack Gillen with us to address any traffic concerns.
Well, even though we're interested in all those things, we are going to have, obviously, peer review and have them thoroughly vet everything you guys do anyway, so.
Well, I did meet with Rod Procaccino. What I tried to do in this application, because it's a school and timeliness is very important, you miss a
But we're going to want peer review, so.
Yeah, but I I did meet with Rod and went through it. And he was actually appreciative of the fact, he said that they had, recently somebody had tried to, a butter had tried to drill a well for irrigation, and they couldn't get water. They had to go an additional 350 feet. So he was thrilled the fact that we're going to be pre-treating and recharging stormwater. And then I went through the Board of Health. I already did a sit-down. What I tried to do was sit down with each department head or staff and check the box to make sure that insofar as possible and practical, we could try to be one and done because of the timeliness. I sat down with Gary Russell and went through the whole septic system, and I think he's good on that. Went over the emergency vehicle access, all the concerns the fire department would have. I think Tommy's good on that. So I tried to vet it because frankly, all the departments are so busy that, and even peer review, when stuff goes out, peer review is so busy that it adds months to programs.
But we're still gonna ask for a peer review. We need it, you know.
Understood.
Have it thoroughly vetted from our side.
Sure.
Okay.
So, would we like to continue this meeting, or?
I mean, I think we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
So, I just have a quick question. So,
Sure.
what is the difference, and this is not site thing, but for the school itself, you're hoping for September? Is that what you were anticipating?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. So the reason that we're concerned about the timing is because, as any school, if it doesn't open, at the end of
September.
August, then it's open the next year. So what we're being told is that our construction window is about 12 months. So we need to break ground sometime in the end of August, so we can pull it off, so we can be open the following year. If we miss that window, then the chances of us opening, then it's a 2-year thing, and that's not feasible for this company to wait to do it. It's just too long. So.
And so what's the difference between what you're proposing and the school in Beverly? Is there any difference between the two of them?
Nothing. Well, the school in Beverly is much bigger. It's a bigger building. I think it has more students. Ryan can address that. He runs both of them. He's going to run both of them.
Yeah, our campus in Beverly has 40,000
Excuse me, I'm sorry, can you just identify yourself?
Sure,
for
Ryan Blosker, head of New England Academy. So we have a 40,000 square foot building that's 2 floors. We currently have 97 students enrolled. This building and this site would be maximum of 78, 80 kids, single story. We designed, because of our maximum classroom space of 8, we designed it so we run out of classroom space pretty quickly at our maximum enrollment, which we project 3 years down the road. But because we are Department of Education approved, everything we do in Beverly has to be exactly the same way in Marshfield. So we've been doing that now for 16 years.
So that's special education, well, that was what, in 2021 you got, and they have to go back in 2023? Is that when they do it again?
For our
Yeah,
review?
review,
Yeah, we just had
right.
one, yes, right, COVID, when COVID hit. So, yeah, so we'll have, every 3 years, Department of Education comes out and does a full review.
So the students that you'll be helping, is it also like Asperger's? Is it just social emotional? Is it dyslexia? Well, like,
Yeah.
what, does it encompass everything?
No, so our population is very special. So all of our kids are at or above grade level academically. So they're actually typically college-bound kids, but for a variety of reasons, anxiety, depression, school phobia, we're seeing a lot of suicidal ideation lately, and high-functioning spectrum kids, autism spectrum kids. Those are our population. We don't serve students with dyslexia. We don't serve students with learning disability. We're approved for a certain population, and our job, I always say, is by the time they graduate, they go off to college, which 100% of our kids have done over the last 16 years.
What communities do these children come from? How far?
Everywhere. We have serviced kids as far as Duxbury, Hingham, Milton, Braintree.
Marshfield.
We have a applicant from Marshfield now, which I found interesting. I didn't say anything to the parent. I'm like, can you wait hopefully a year? But on this, we go as far south as Sharon, Newton, all the way up 128 into New Hampshire and Maine. We have kids that really come from all over.
I mean, this school really wouldn't be servicing them. This school would be more local.
Yeah,
correct?
so this would be primarily for South Shore. So we were asked probably about 14 years ago to consider opening a South Shore campus because of the needs. And just getting this campus off was a labor of love in itself. But in working with, and talking with the Marshfield Special Ed Director and then the attorney who represents Marshfield Special Education, who I worked with when I was in public school, the need for mental health services on the South Shore has dramatically increased, like it has in every district. So I envision that we would probably see kids from Quincy, Braintree, all the way down probably to the Cape, because we've had referrals to Beverly from students in the Cape Cod, and it's just too far.
Now, you said 80 students and one teacher per 8 students, correct?
Correct.
So you're talking, say, 10 more teachers. How many support staff would be there for a total occupancy of the building?
Yeah, I would say we probably have 25 to 28 total staff. So we have an 8-to-1 teacher ratio, but we have an 8-to-1 counselor. All the kids get counseling in school. And then we have our administrative team, a school nurse, gym teacher.
So roughly 120 people coming to your facility in the morning and exiting that night?
That would be max, yeah.
Okay. And basically, it's school hours, no nights, no weekends, holidays, summer's closed.
Yeah, so I left at 3:30 from Beverly to come here today, and my car was the only one in the lot. So most of our teachers are gone by 2:45, 3 o'clock.
The place is empty 10 minutes after.
Yeah.
It's like a ghost town.
Like any other school.
Like any other school, exactly.
So who's going to be our peer review person for this?
Well, we'll have to decide that. So, you got a question?
Yeah, I have one question. Counsel, you talked about public safety, talking to Deputy Chief Corbo, and that's fine, and I appreciate your comment on the need for more mental health in the state and in the country, wherever. Have we talked to the police chief? And I know we have, safety factors built into our school system, where you're not part of this town school system. How does that?
I haven't talked to Phil because he's been in the weeds. They just moved in today. You're moving into the new station.
Okay.
So, but I certainly will.
I did mention it to Phil a long time ago when the concept first came up, and he was thrilled at the idea, but you make a good point. I think if we're going to continue the hearing, then we will come back with a security plan to show as well, just so, whatever that is, some sort of
Well,
security
gentlemen can
plan.
probably speak to that yourself, correct?
Yeah, we have a great, in Beverly, we have a great relationship with the police. We honestly don't need them that often. It's pretty rare, but we do partner with them in regards to ALICE training. We've got some ALICE trained staff on school safety, school shooting. We design each one of our buildings for school safety purposes. That's why we have glass and visual spots all over the school. And like I said, Beverly's more of a, they swing by, how's everything going? Great. Once in a while, something comes up. We have a school resource officer that serves all the private schools and the public schools. We'll connect with him. One of our parents is a Beverly PD, so that kind of, he's always swinging by as well. So we would expect the same relationship with the town of Marshfield.
Have you looked at staggering the release time to limit the interplay with the school complex down the street?
We certainly could look at that. Sure. If the board thinks that might be appropriate or necessary, sure. Yeah.
Just to be clear, is this children going to the school are referred from the town schools?
Right.
And then that they can't handle whatever disability they have, and then are gone to the school?
Right. And just a side note, we don't take unilateral placement of kids. That's when a parent places the kid in the school and the parent legally then pursues the school district for funding. We won't do it. We tell parents that it's just not an option. We have great relationships with our districts. And part of it is we never want to be doing this with them. So we just won't do it.
Interesting.
Real quick, too, the stat you just threw out, you said you have a 100% college placement?
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
These are kids that were sitting at home and who won't go to school, and now they're young professionals as teachers and doctors and physicists. It's beyond what I could imagine. I was just hoping to get them to graduate. It's been amazing. We have graduation on Thursday, so we've been lucky.
So I have a question. So do you guys, so is the counseling part of their everyday, so it's like part of their schedule?
Correct.
So they don't get sent out, it's just part of the whole situation?
Math, science, counseling,
Counseling,
history,
okay.
English, yeah.
And then the graduation rate, is there any follow-up on what happens after they get accepted and they graduate, and then what happens? Do you guys do a follow-up on what happens to those kids? Do they
Yeah.
graduate from college? Are they, what's the deal? Like, what is the percentage that just make it through the first year or half a first year? Like, what's the deal?
We do an alumni survey every 2 years, and our alumni data has been that 91% of the kids that that graduate high school graduate college. So the other 9%, of those 9%, most are working. Like some of our kids do graduate, apply to college, but they go the first year and they go, this isn't for me.
Right.
So they're working, they're living independently, but most are doing very well.
So I'm just going to circle back. Did you say there's no cafeteria? There's no, like, where do they eat? What's that?
There's no kitchen. There's a cafeteria. There's no kitchen.
Like what? Like, where do they?
We don't have a working kitchen.
Okay.
So kids bring their lunch.
Yeah.
So that could be sandwiches, that could be a microwave, mostly microwave mac and cheese. A lot of our kids are very picky with what they also eat, just some of their disability stuff just plays into it. So, but like we have the current same setup. It looks like a typical cafeteria where kids would get in, except you're not getting in line for lunch. There's like 6 different microwaves that kids will use. Most kids will, they bring sandwiches and things that they like to eat.
As long as everything else falls into place, I think this is a no-brainer. And I know many people I know send their kids all over the state. It's a large cost on the towns and a large cost on everyone, especially the kid that has to sit in the car for an hour and a half, wherever he's going. It's good to have it close.
So we ready to continue?
Question, the glass, is it bulletproof, shatterproof?
I know, we're gonna let them speak at a later time. There's gonna be several meetings.
Contemplated for safety reasons.
I don't know. Ryan or Steve?
At this time, it's thermopane, plate glass.
Yeah, no, just going forward, I think it's something that people should think about, you know, based on everything we've been through. I mean, I'm not saying that you have to have it, I'm just
No, we're gonna
wondering
let
if
them
it's
speak at a
part of
later
the
time.
Why not get their questions now? So if there's anything they have to look into, they can get back to us since time is of the essence. You think?
No, because of the length of the meeting. We're gonna take the questions at the next meeting, because we're gonna have several meetings on this. So, so we'll just need, probably like a month for, peer review, and we'll get requests for proposals, and then we'd have to request a retainer. Is that okay? All right.
Brian?
Yeah.
There's also comments from the planning board, well, not the planning board office.
Right, I saw that.
Regarding traffic mitigation, and I don't know what else was on there.
Right, that's what we'll be well, obviously, we'll be asking for that.
I can address both of those. I saw those. Karen sent over the thing. So we, our traffic report said 79 trip count. We know that we have to pay into the traffic mitigation. I think there's some mitigating, for lack of a better expression, to the traffic count that we have. So what I would ask the board to do is just, condition the permit on us, paying the mitigation fee upon agreement with the planning board, one of those instead of, I see the number that she got, that's probably fine, but, I didn't have a chance to really vet it. The other thing she mentioned was the parcel that had to do with the former dog park location. VRT, once we waited until the last town meeting when they approved the relocation of the dog park, and then Mr. Veraki met with Mike Maresco and got permission that we don't have to donate that little piece anymore because the dog park's been relocated. So, and if the board sees fit, we can get a letter from Mike that will just say that that's fine. That addresses Karen's two questions or concerns. But if you leave open-ended the condition on and you know what, if we're gonna continue anyway, that'll give me a chance to talk to her about how we do the math and, that works. But
Yeah,
we pay it on all of them. We did it on the bank. We know about that. Yep.
So Nancy, what do we have that would give us a
I would say
month?
July 12th to give whoever the peer reviewer is time to look at things, and it's a less busy meeting than the 28th.
Okay. Well, yeah, we need probably a month to get the peer review in.
So they'll need time.
Yeah. So July 12th. So I'm going to move that the board...
If I just ask, so just for clarification, that's all. Will the peer review be like, do you need to...
We're going to need site...
In other words, are they going to get
drainage.
picked on the July meeting, or are they going to get picked before that and do their review, and then when we come to July, we can have the comments, we can have the plan all queued up for you?
We should have it picked by then.
Bob, do you want to come?
In other words, we can take care of that between us in between.
Yeah,
Like, I can
in
get you the
between.
retainer, I can get you once you guys, but do you need to decide that at a public meeting? Bob, do they have to decide?
My recommendation is that the board get
Proposals.
proposals for the peer review, assuming they agree and pay a deposit, you have a peer review. You can allow the peer reviewer to speak to their consultant so that the whole thing can be expedited. But, you gotta make sure you, at the next hearing, you start with really hearing from the public too, if there's anybody else that wants to hear.
Right.
Cool, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we could deal with that without a public meeting, and that's great. I'm happy to help, go coordinate with you folks.
All right, so we're going to I make a motion that we move to continue this public hearing to July 12th. That will be the only notice, right? So, do I have a second? 6:30. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Conley, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Very much.
Is Michael Snoydale here?
All right, we'll see you. Good night. Good seeing you.
So I move that the board open the public meeting for the application of 2259 Michael Snowdale, Stellwagen Beer Company. The petitioner is seeking a variance in accordance with 305-10.11 for the leaf from 305-6.02 and 305-6.08, and site plan approval under 305-12.02 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 14 by 14 open deck on the property located at 100 Enterprise Drive, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel D09-01-12B, and is located in the I-1 zoning district. Your name and address for the record?
Sure. My name is Mike Snowdale. I'm the owner of Stellwagen Beer Company that's on 100 Enterprise Drive in Marshfield.
Okay.
So I'm here to apply for a variance for construction of a 14 by 14 foot open deck in our beer garden. So as you can see on the site plan right there, from the left edge of the building all the way over to the right, that's a fenced-in grass area that our guests go out and enjoy, picnic tables and, picnic blankets, whatever. Have a couple beers. If we have a food truck, they eat out there, or they, food that they bring on their own. The spot in question is actually, well, before I get to that, so it's generally a very flat area. You can see it right here. So it's that top left corner right there that doesn't have any grass on it, and you can't tell from the angle, but it's very steep. So we don't use it for anything. You can't put chairs up there just because of the angle. And we figured that a deck would allow us to be able to use that space where it otherwise wouldn't be.
Okay. Andrew, do you have anything on this?
Nope, just this is the result of a very, very good social media marketing campaign. Because we discovered the fact that they were doing this on Instagram. I don't have a problem with the fact that they're doing it at all. I think it's a good addition. It's just they need to come to the correct permitting, that's all.
Yeah, so for full disclosure, it's probably about a third done at this point. So when Andrew let me know to go through the proper channels, we stopped. Here I am.
Have anything from the board?
No, this is right on the property line, though, correct?
Correct, yes. It's the setbacks
Yeah,
that are
one
the
time I
issue.
looked at it, it's right, there is no setback, it's right on the property line, pretty much.
A few feet, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple feet.
So is the retaining wall's in, and then you're digging into the ground, putting a deck on that?
Correct.
So it's level, or is there gonna be stairs up to the?
So there won't be stairs, so the access will be up against where the trees are. Folks will be able to walk up. It's, I guess you could call it stairs, but they're platforms.
It seems like it'd be a safety issue not to have it. As if it's a steep incline with someone could fall off of it or something like that, where if you have a level deck, that's gonna be accessible.
So can the ground not be leveled? Is that what the deal is? That you are not able to level the ground over there? Just do like a patio or something?
I guess in theory we could level it out. I just figured that would be the deck would be less impactful.
Essentially, this is the high ground up here, and the deck is essentially just extending out, essentially, from there. So that's why it's elevated a little bit. It works as a stage, essentially, more than anything.
So what about like potential neighbors down the road when that's like really cozy over there in that corner? Like whoever comes in to that area next?
The agriculture, so the spot behind us.
Yeah.
It's all industrial zoned, so they're compliant as far as their buffers.
Even if they're up against the fence?
Well, that's what he's looking for a variance for, is the setback.
Right.
So Andrew used the word stage. Is this gonna lead to a second request for use for entertainment down the road, or?
So we already have an entertainment license for our outdoor space. Right now, we do have bands outside already. We have them set up kind of up against the building, kind of diagonal from the spot of the proposed deck. Yeah, we did envision potentially using it when the weather's nice, and we do have music booked for a band to play up there.
And if I could point out at that point, if they had the bands here, the direction of the sound would be directed back towards the building instead of if they're here, the sound is directed out towards the neighbors.
So you already have, I'd like to go out and see it. Again, I'm sorry I
Yeah,
didn't get a chance to.
I feel the
but
same way.
You've already had
Did you
this
go see it,
happening,
Larry?
whatever, you've been having,
He's not
whatever,
already
you
there? Yeah.
advertising or whatever, is that what he was saying?
So
Sort of, kind of already started the process of
the
doing
deck?
something? Or just advertising that you were doing it,
see it, Larry?
or just you already had
it was just
activity
kind
out
of like
there?
it was yeah. On social media, it was a hey, coming soon. Check this out.
Okay.
Now, that deck, is it open to the public?
Yes.
It is, okay, and I was actually out there looking at it, I've been there before. I've used you guys for fundraising for a lot of cancer causes, which is great, thank you. But the hills going up there, ADA compliancy, are you gonna be, is that something we even have to, be concerned about? Or is it, I don't see how somebody in a wheelchair could get up there. Is it something you've thought about?
Well, frankly, I guess I just assumed that they would be. It's as accessible now as it would be.
But now you want to add something to it and make it like an event space, kind of like, you know what I mean? You want to have stuff there, so they may want to get up there like everybody else. I think that's what we're trying to get at.
Yeah, I mean it's so the angle where you would. Can I get up and point?
Sure.
Yeah. So where you would be able to. Andrew, can we go back to the? Oh, I guess we can go here. So access would be up here. So the area it's still accessible. Like there's not stairs. It's just an incline.
Andrew, do we have any of the original drawings from the, with topography and stuff on this? Or is that the only drawing we have? I'm just saying, because we can continue.
Look, yeah, give me just a second, I'll find it.
So we're waiting for Andrew. So how much more traffic do you think
I've
you're going
been
to
there
have
before.
as a result of whatever campaigning you're going to be doing for whatever marketing you're doing to utilize this space? Like how much more use do you think you're going to get because of this? Do you have projections for that, or?
I haven't done a formal projection on it.
No,
I just think it's
just a fun thing.
just a fun thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to check it out.
So that's it up in that upper corner. We can see it going from 92 up to 98,
Yeah, so you look at,
so 6 feet.
you got a 4 foot over 40 foot,
Or 100 right here, 100 at the corner.
All right, so 8 feet,
8 feet at 40 feet of distance.
40 feet, yeah. I mean, I didn't make it out there, nor did Heidi. I'd like to go out and at least see it. Does the board have a problem with continuous meeting to July 12th?
I do not.
So I'm going to make a motion that we continue this meeting to July 12th. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Corwin, aye.
6:30. Brian Murphy, aye.
Around there.
There you go, yeah.
Chris Pelzo's aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
So are we doing public then? Any public
Yeah,
comments about it
we'll
then?
get the comments all then. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
All right, so now we have 22-24 Marshfield Commerce Way LLC.
You're not gonna throw things at us, are you? We have enough issues.
Happy 10th, thanks.
Signed in here. It's signed in here. Where's the zoom in? Yeah, there's no way to.
How are you?
Good, how are you? So, do you want to go, or do you want Ed to do any updating, or?
I was going to let the
Go.
applicant start,
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, and then I'll jump in a minute here.
Sure.
I wanted to confirm that their consultant from Vaness is on the Zoom, and also not sure if Patrick Brennan is here or is on the Zoom as well.
And Cliff Bowler's on there too, I saw his.
Pepperton is here, Jared Roach is here.
Cliff Bowler.
Okay? And Cliff Bomer? Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay,
Yeah, well, sure.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Chairman Murphy and members of the board. We don't really have a detailed presentation today, but we have been working in a lot of detail with the peer reviewers on a number of issues, civil, traffic, and drainage, which I'm sure Ed will speak to. Appreciate your time this evening. We've obviously also received architectural peer review comments, and so one thing we'd request the board is to hear your feedback and commentary on the overall sort of peer review comments so that we can respond in a holistic way.
Okay.
So Mr. Chairman, for the record, everyone, I'm Ed Pesci of Pesci Engineering, kind of managing the peer review consultants for this project. With me is Pat Brennan from Amory Engineers, and also I'm pretty sure she's on. Kirsten Braun from Ron Mueller and Associates is also on with us via Zoom. Kirsten, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, great. So I'll give some highlights. What I thought would be good for the board is to talk about what previous peer review work has been done, what responses to the comments that have been made by the applicant's team, and what's left over to be talked about. And there's a couple other things that they brought some other consultants with them to talk about, to answer questions. And then I was going to save the final traffic questions at the end, because the public brought up a question about the previous work that was done, the off-site improvements that was done by Moderna Marshfield, and what was done there. And they produced a nice report today, Vanessa did, of what previous improvements were done for that project. So what's been done so far is a site plan, drainage, and water supply peer review by myself and Pat Brennan, and then a traffic review by Ron Mueller and Associates, Kirsten Braun of Ron Mueller and Associates, and since then, there's been responses to both of those. So without going through a lot of detail, I will defer briefly here to Pat to go over the responses on drainage analysis and water supply. So Pat, why don't you give an update to the board?
All right, thank you, Ed. So they had responded to my original stormwater comments. I asked them to do a little bit more work on the stormwater, and basically they submitted a revised narrative and calculations dated May 20th. And those calculations show on a conceptual level that they'll be able to mitigate the stormwater runoff from the site. Basically, if you remember last time, I had explained that we had given them the rates and volumes of runoff that were projected to come off the site during the Enterprise Park definitive subdivision permitting. And we basically told them that they had to meet or they could not exceed those rates or volumes. The conceptual design that they have, which is, excuse me, basically recharging pretty much all of the roof runoff, or at least the majority of the roof runoff from the site, that they will be able to meet those rates and volumes. But again, this is conceptual it's a conceptual level at this point, so obviously, would need to confirm that when the final plans and drainage calculations are prepared and submitted. From a water supply standpoint, I did run some calculations on what the water usage has been in town over the last 5 or 6 years, and it does appear that there should be water available under the town's Water Management Act permit, which is how much they're authorized to withdraw on an average daily basis. However, the Board of Public Works, it's my understanding from talking with Roy Parcino, the town engineer, the Board of Public Works is concerned about the current pumping capacity of the well supplies. So they've asked Rod and staff to look at the infrastructure, basically the pumping stations in the high service zone. Marshfield has 2 service zones, there's the low zone and the high zone. This is in the high zone. It's just the grade line is higher so that they can serve the higher elevations in town with adequate pressure. And they're just they're trying to determine the condition of that infrastructure, what the current pumping capacity is of those supplies in that zone, to make sure that that zone can adequately meet a peak demand at this location. So, that's what they're looking at right now. So basically, I had some contact with the applicant's engineer today, and basically relayed to him this information and just suggested the applicant continue to work with DPW staff and the Board of Public Works, basically to determine if there's any mitigation that may be required to augment the current pumping capacity. Basically, I think there's only 6 wells, 6 supplies in the high zone. There's a lot more in the low zone, so they're just a little more concerned about this project being in the high zone. So that's something that is still being looked at this point, and hopefully we're getting close to having some answers from the Board of Public Works, but we're just not there yet.
So my initial peer review letter, which included all the different disciplines, was April 22nd. It included Pat's comments, it included Kirsten's comments, and since then, Hancock Associates, their consulting engineer, Anthony Donato here, has responded on at the end of April, April 29th, and also sent us some revised documentation a couple weeks ago, May 20th, that Pat's referring to. I still would advise that the applicant meet with the DPW board and pursue approval of your project with them. Pat's waiting for some documentation to continue his analysis, but I think it's advisable that you continue to do that.
Yep.
I'm going to go through some of the original comments that I put together in addition to Pat's, but that's the reason I have not responded in writing to them just yet, because we're waiting on a few things to be resolved, and I'm expecting some additional information, perhaps even an update from the applicant's team tonight. But let's go to traffic now for a moment. So our initial traffic review was prepared by Kirsten on the 21st of April. It was sent to the applicant. The applicant responded back. Vanessa and Associates responded back. And Kirsten, I'm going to forget which date it is, but May 5th, I believe, from Vanessa and Associates.
A couple of weeks later, on May 27th, Kirsten from Ron Mueller and Associates sent a second review letter responding to the response to comments. So follow with me here. For initial comment letter in April, a response in early May, a response from my consultant on the 27th, another response from Vanessa and Associates on Friday, June 9th. And we're down to a couple of things. So Kirsten, why don't you take it from here, and I'd like to add in when you're done.
Yeah, sure. So as Ed mentioned, we went through an initial review a couple months ago. We had a number of comments. Vanessa came back and responded to the comments, and now what we're left with is just really two things that were responded to in this most recent letter from June 9th. But the two main items is really to, the first one is that they are proposing improvements to Enterprise and 139 to optimize the signal timing, and we just commented that that's under MassDOT jurisdiction, so they're going to have to go through the whole DOT process to take care of that. But we did suggest that at the discretion of the board that be included as a condition in the decision. And then secondly was the fair share cost contribution for the project. I know under the original development plan of the athletic facility, they were they committed to a $90,000 fair share cost contribution. So we suggested a few different ways to do it. I think the town might have their own method, but typically you can look at things like a ratio to the peak hour traffic increase as compared to the initial development plan, or some other method that the town might have. But I think that those are things that still need to get ironed out before we can finalize our review.
So in addition to that, many of the comments that Kirsten's team provided Vanessa's response was, we agree, we'll provide that at a later time. So, for instance, a site triangle, to show on the site plan site triangles of the proposed driveways, assure the proposed landscaping or signs are outside these site triangles do not impede driver visibility. Also, a signing and striping plan, those kinds of things, and they agreed that there will be, the comment is resolved pending receipt and review of the revised plans, which we have not received yet. And I'm not sure when we will receive those, or if that becomes a condition of the decision and we receive those later, but that's part of the couple of things. Now, so that there's two, beyond agreeing that they'll provide it later, there are two items that Kirsten just referred to. One is that they have already agreed to provide, and at the discretion of the board, the improvements can be added as a condition of decision, but to provide that system optimization, signal optimization to improve operations at that intersection. The final thing was, and I think this is an important thing to iron out, we don't have to do that tonight, but that is a fair share contribution for the amount of trips being added. So I note that there was a $90,000, I can't remember what year, 2005, 2006, from the athletic field. I'd like to figure out when that was, because we might want to adjust it for inflation, so to speak. But if I looked at the last project, the very last project the board talking about with traffic, the planning board argued a $630 per peak vehicle trip cost as a fair share contribution for the last project regarding the for-profit school, New England Academy. If I multiplied that out, I just did a quick multiplication, that's $94,500 for the 150 peak weekday vehicle trips that they're proposing. That's just one way to do it, okay? I don't know, and what I don't know is that $90,000 is what part of the total cost of that intersection improvement. I don't know that either. I'll probably have some conversations with the town planner, but also perhaps with Jeffrey Dirk at Vanessa to get a cost estimate on what that might be. But it's one of those things that we just got to iron out before we close the hearing. Okay? And I'll hold off on the final discussion about the questions the public had at the last hearing regarding the previous project. We'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
I'll now just refer to, and I know Andrew's been such a great help with the on-the-screen stuff, refer to the May 9th response letter from Mill Creek to my original response letter dated April 22nd with the comments from Kirsten and Ron Mueller Associates dated April 21st, and the comments from Pat Brennan as well dated April 15th. So there are a couple of things, and I kind of wrote them down to prepare for this meeting. A couple things that are not addressed. There are many things that are addressed that they said, yep, we agree, we'll provide those at a later date. Yep, we agree, we'll get you those. Some of those things are, we recommended that the proposed buildings be numbered and entrance and exit roads be given a letter designation and ease for coordination of locations of design efforts and so on. Yep, they'll do so at a later date. We asked for a stop sign and stop line. We asked for cross-section, construction and cross-section details. Again, since the plans are conceptual in nature today, they agreed to provide those at a later date. A couple of things that they have not fully resolved just yet. I've got a list here of a couple of things I just wanted to go through. I've got four items. One was my initial comment number 3 and comment number 4B, which regarded review by the fire department. In my discussions with the chief, he was concerned about a second means of egress. When I spoke to Tim Alexander of Mill Creek, he said that they were discussing that. They were discussing that with their project engineer, that was some ideas that they were throwing around. It wasn't ready for prime time, and that still's not resolved. So a second means of egress, I know, is on the fire chief's mind, and I think it ought to be discussed at some point in the future, if not an update later tonight. Second item was regard to the waivers that were being requested. Item 8B was my comment about lighting, and the response was that there would be industry standard lighting, and all I wanted to make the point was that also has to be dark sky compliant, obviously. The third one was about elements of the project that was green design, item comment number 9, and they mentioned that there would be some electric vehicle charging stations, and I would just like them to consider that and notify the board of how many you would be proposing. That's kind of a work in progress, I think, amongst the many communities in the Commonwealth. I had to work on this in a couple other communities, and it's a variable number, but depending on the residents. And finally, there was a discussion about the Flats residents. This is item number 11, comment number 11. The Flats residents, we're going to have a central trash location that should be shown on the plan as well. Okay? So those are the couple of things, and I guess I'd like to ask Anand and your team if you could give us an update on where you stand with your discussions with the fire department and that second means of egress discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the review, Ed. So we met with the fire chief a few weeks ago, Mill Creek team, our civil engineer, and our construction representatives to go over their concerns. And as Ed said, it's a request for a second egress. And we've looked at a couple different options. We think we have a solution for it, kind of coming through the middle of the site. And so we're reviewing, impacts on things like cut fill and grading, other things like that. But we do think we have a solution. We do expect to present it to the fire chief in the next few weeks and update the site plan accordingly.
Okay, so I think that's an important thing that the board should consider, and we'll wait to see more information on that.
Yeah, we definitely need a second means of egress.
Okay, in today's, wrapping up my update for the board here today, I received a 2-page list from Vanessa and Associates on the Madeira Marshfield, not Moderna, Madeira Marshfield project.
We're not,
and all the transportation improvement program summaries, summary of all the transportation improvement program work that was done. And I guess I'd like to ask, I know Jeffrey Dirk was in another community tonight. Derek is on? Yeah. So I'd like to ask the representative holding the fort for Vanessa to go through that, please, because I know the public was very interested in that. And I don't want to forget to ask I think you have a rep from, you have, is it, from LEC?
Yes.
To talk a little bit about the, I'd like, actually, before we get into that and start to go back and forth with the public, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just go through LEC's review of the conservation and management permit,
Okay.
which is the endangered species habitat permit that they included. So they did include a rather lengthy, and they usually are, CMP, that from the original construction request or the original construction design work for the park. And this is a section of the park that was considered to be something else at that time, but nonetheless, this project area is considered in their phase 1 of the original design work in the park. So I guess if I could just ask them to give us a update on what was done and what's been done since, to just wrap that piece of it up. I believe all the documentation is there, but they brought their consultant with us. I think it's worthwhile hearing from him.
I would love to hear from
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Brian? Oh, there you are. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay to speak from here?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Brian Madden from LEC Environmental Consultants. I've been involved with natural heritage permitting within the park for about 10 years. So this lot in particular dates back to the original conservation management permit, which was formerly called Lot 6R when the athletic complex was being proposed at that point in time. As part of that phase 1 build out, there were certain mitigation requirements. To date, those have been fulfilled for future development on this particular lot. And moving forward, really the only requirement as part of the permit, which is now covered under an amended permit issued in 2019 to cover the entire phase 2 of the park, involves implementation of a turtle protection plan. Basically, what we've done in other lots within the park is just encircling the construction footprint with entrenched silt fencing, and then spending multiple days and hours looking for turtles and physically relocating them outside of the work footprint so they're out of harm's way. And that would just be conducted prior to the start of work during the active season. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions.
So how many turtles have you actually found up there in the past 10 years?
I've seen 2 out there.
2 live ones?
Actually, 1 live, 1 dead.
1 dead. So as I know, 1 was saved when they did the ball fields. They found 1. Is that you that found it?
That was another firm that did it.
Okay. But so you've found 2 live ones in that?
1 live, 1
One
on
dead.
Madeiras.
Okay. And do you have any explanation why they don't go over the Pembroke or the Duxbury line?
I'm sure they're there.
No.
I'm sure they're there.
Well, they're not identified as being there, so I was just wondering.
Well, at least directly abutting to the south. Maybe not in other parts of the town, but.
Does the board have any questions?
For clarification with the turtles, when you say you relocate them, you don't relocate them, you just get them out of harm's way.
Exactly.
Right. So that 1 turtle you found alive, you would just remove him to an area of a site that's not being
On-site.
under construction, so.
Correct.
So
Outside the silt
okay.
fencing.
How are they determined to be a threatened species or a species? What are they now? They're not. They're
Special
no,
concern,
Sorry.
which is the lowest ranking in the state.
In how many places in the state, percentage-wise, have a problem with these turtles?
Marshfield is a hot spot. There's, Cape and Islands, or specifically the Cape, and out along the Connecticut River Valley in certain towns as well. So it's somewhat regionalized and dispersed. So that's, from a statewide perspective, they're considered rare.
Rare. And so how many cities and counties would you say, percentage-wise? Are we in 4% of the state? Are we in 1%? Are we 3%?
Well, Southeast Mass in general can vary from town to town. I'd say, per town, you could be anywhere from 10 to 25%.
Anything else from the board?
Nothing on that.
All right. So I guess that's a good update.
So, Mr. Chairman, that addresses my comment 10, pending receipt of the turtle protection plan for, our records and obviously start of construction anyway. They did the same thing in the last episode for Madeira, of course, so, Madeira, excuse me, and I'll do that a couple more times before the night's over.
Everyone does.
But anyway, I consider that taken care of. I think they provided some adequate documentation, and it wasn't their documentation, it was the Natural Heritage and Division of Fish and Wildlife documentation that I think is the kicker there. So, all right, so I guess I'd like to go to the Vaness and Associates rep, holding the fort for, in a very, very big shoes to fill indeed for Jeffrey Dirk tonight. So to go through the Madeira Marshfield traffic improvements, just so everyone has that. I don't know if that was sent, I think Jeff's pretty good about sending it to you and me, Nancy.
Nancy, it's the thing that you got at the end of the day. It's this chart.
I actually gave that to
So
her.
it's,
Did I save
it's
it,
not
though?
the letter.
I printed it for you guys. I don't know if
Yeah.
I saved it.
So Andrew may not have it.
Two-pager, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Andrew may not have it to bring up.
Yep.
It'll just take me a second.
Okay. Andrew, I'm going to have Nancy's running out to go send it to you so you have it and you can bring it up, okay?
So then, do you want to go to Cliff Bomer and see while we wait for this?
Yes, please.
Cliff? Say his name right? He on there? Did he lose it?
He was.
Look, I'm here.
Okay.
Would you like me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. First of all, I know that you've only had my report for a day, so I don't expect that everybody is committed to memory. It's 8 pages long. It's got a lot of detail. It's interesting to hear there is a lot of overlap with some of the peer reviews that have been done already. Some of them are expanded a little bit, but in any case, it's pretty dense. But what I'd like to do is just hit on some of the topics or the top points. Quick, I mean, I should introduce myself. I'm Cliff Palmer. I'm a principal at Davis Square Architects. Our firm is in Somerville, and we specialize in multifamily housing development. Something I've been doing for the last 30 years. My role on this, as it has been for many zoning boards of appeal, is really trying to get the community the best possible design they can get under the constraints of 40B. 40B is like many other constraints. All projects have constraints, and I'm here to help to try to make it better from the kind of perspective I have as a designer. I usually break that down into a couple different categories, which is the overall organization of the letter. We all know the drawings are preliminary at this point. They're on their way into being the schematic design drawings. I would call them somewhere between conceptual and schematic design drawings at this point. And it's a good time to review them. It's a time when there hasn't been massive amounts of resources poured into them. So if there are changes needed, it's usually pretty easy for the developer to do. I look at two things primarily. One is the impact that the project does have to the public realm and to the immediate abutters of the development. And then, as importantly, I think, is drilling down deeper into the design of the development, both the site and the building developments, thinking from the perspective of the quality of life of the residents of the building. This is a substantial development, and it will benefit everybody, the developer, the town, all parties involved who have happy residents who really want to live there. So that's my perspective, really, is impact and what it would be like living in this development. I think having people live there is clearly the key to the long-term sustainability of the development. So that's my intro piece. I'll hit on just a couple, maybe 4 or 5 points. What might help is if you have my letter, pull up the key plan. Actually, that was the area of overlap where I keyed the drawing myself so that it would be easier for me to explain some of the ideas I had for some of the study organization.
I don't know which one that is.
Well, it's, I think you had it up there at one point. It's architectural peer review.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. That's it.
There we go.
I think it's on page.
First thing I opened tonight, Cliff.
It was, I saw it. So if you wouldn't mind, just scroll down to page 3. There you go. I just think that will help when we discuss the site. I think one thing that's really unusual about this development compared to many others is that there is the neighboring development that was phase 1 of this project, and it's a rare opportunity to really see what I call full-scale mock-ups of some of the building sites. It's unusual, and certainly I'm sure the board has been there, but for other people who want some help in imagining what the new development might be like, at least from the perspective of building design, next door is very similar. There's at least one building that's identical. There may be others. So that helps considerably, I think, in the review of this. I think from the kind of big perspective, looking out well beyond the site, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile out, another unusual aspect of this site, or I think very favorable aspect of this site, is that for a site that is pretty strongly motor dependent, it actually has a very good walkable pedestrian connections to a variety of amenities, open space, commercial, educational, and even other very pleasant neighborhoods to walk through. So while it is motor dependent for most of the residents, for most of the time, it still doesn't have the kind of pressure that truly isolated developments would have for having their own self-sufficiency within the site, because it's difficult for residents to really get out and go anywhere else except by car. So I think that's a good thing. There are, and I do go into some detail about it, but you all live there, so you know better than I do. The next point I wanted to bring up is kind of digging into the site organization. As I say at the very, very beginning of the letter, the architectural plans, I don't say a whole lot about it. There's one particular aspect I will bring up that is important. So I'm mainly looking at site organization and suggestions for making it better. My basic belief is that the site is well organized. I think the idea of the perimeter of the smaller scale three-story townhouses, matching the setback along the main street along Commerce Way with the buildings next door, they're very, very similar buildings. I think that creates a nice continuity of the street that enhances the pedestrian experience and provides continuity is kind of important because there are a number of uses, there are a number of mixed uses in that community, and I think it's nice when you can have a larger scale kind of street presence that helps tie it together. I think you all know directly to the east is a large forest preserve, and if you keep going to the east, then you're into more residential scale, very walkable neighborhoods. So I think support the site strategy. I think it works well. On the other hand, I think within the site itself, so I think there are really good opportunities for screening that are created by the smaller scale buildings, particularly from Commerce Way and the sloped setback on Commerce that is already wooded, and I'm presuming that a lot of that is scheduled for preservation, although we don't formally know that. I think my main point is that I think for a site of this scale, in my opinion, there is some lack of programmable open space on the site. It is 300 units. The adjacent development, I think, is 240 or 248. It was represented differently in different places. But in my opinion, it feels a bit tight. And at one point in my review, it's on page 4, but I feel like it could be, it would be very beneficial, it would be very easy, actually, and I think beneficial to help that problem. The strategy that I suggested was actually eliminating building 10. Building 10 is a 6-unit townhouse building that's kind of orphaned in that district of the site where all of the larger scale flats are, multi-story, 3 and 4-story buildings are. My recommendation, I think, to get up to a level of open space that I think is appropriate would be to start by eliminating building 10. And the goal would be to activate that space that's to the west of building 9. And at the same time, create a nice connection from the open space that is associated with the community center or the clubhouse as you enter the development. Create good continuity so that you have a significant, this kind of L-shaped open space that can handle a lot of different types of programming for little children to the clubhouse kinds of activities. And I would hope to see some more opportunity for more active recreation on the site. I think it could, at the same time, I would pair that with creating a little more space between buildings 7 and 8, 10 and 11, and 13 and 14. I like the idea of that internal circulation of having a pathway there. I think from my own feeling about the sectional analysis of that space between the buildings, it would benefit from spreading those buildings a little further apart. And this is just a suggestion, but I would suggest perhaps swinging buildings 1 and 2 around so they're more parallel to the lot line as buildings 3 and 4 are. That could give you the opportunity to straighten out the road that feeds building 1, the driveway that feeds 1 and 2, and then stretch that space between 13, 14, 10, and 11. Building 9, if the 10 is eliminated, building 9 could move over if it needed to create more space between 7 and 8. So that really is my main idea of a way to accomplish what I think for kind of a small hit as far as unit loss. I think it would greatly benefit the feeling of the site and open up more opportunities for programming. Another issue, I think, kind of digging in a little bit deeper on site issues, and by the way, I did have the same comments about trash, seeking some clarity on trash. Right now, the trash, I think, is shown pretty much solely down in the southwest corner of the site. I would expect the development of this scale would have multiple locations, but generally, I would expect to see a trash management plan that would explain what the real strategy is. In any case, what I was going to go into was site-wide accessibility. And I hit on this point a couple of times in my letter. This site is sloped significantly, and in some areas in particular, it appears that the slope may be steep enough that there isn't an accessible path that goes from the site to Commerce Way. It is a requirement in state access board that there be an accessible path from all of the, from the buildings down to a public way. And the run and driveway to the right or to the east of building 6 does appear to be like it may be sloped beyond 5%. I think similarly, wherever all the trash dumpsters go, or whatever the system is, as well as all of the play equipment on the site and other amenities that would be on the site, they all need to be connected with an accessible path. And because I think there is enough slope on this site, I recommend that the board request a diagram that simply shows the accessible paths throughout the site that connect all of the accessible amenities, or all of the amenities which do need to be accessible, that connect all of them, and then ultimately an accessible path that goes out to the roadway. It's totally doable in my opinion, but it's kind of hard to tell without really seeing the plan. There are a handful of other site issues that are detailed on page 5 of my report, including our mail and package, deliveries handled, school bus waiting areas, snow storage, any ground-mounted mechanical equipment, patios between the townhouses. There are a number of elements that I think the drawings aren't really all coordinated at this point. That's normal, not alarming in any way. And given the responses that I did see in the other peer reviews, it seems like the applicant has been very willing to continue to share the development of the project with the board. Quickly, some other items. I'll stick with the accessibility for the moment. Whether it's a reflection of the level of completion of the drawings, or whether it's intentional, at the current level of the drawings in the 3 to 4 story multifamily buildings with flats, there are no elevators indicated in those buildings, and that's 260 units in however many buildings, 7 different buildings, with only the ground level units accessible in that scenario. There are exceptions in the access code. The elevator code actually does not require elevators, and nor does the other sections in the building code. However, there are sections in the accessible code that do require that accessible units, of which this development is required to have 5% of those 300 units have to be what's known as group 2 units, fully accessible units. So 15 of those need to be accessible. Within 521 CMR, which is the access code, there are requirements about how to distribute those units throughout the site. And my recommendation to the board is to request, at a minimum, an advisory opinion from the Architectural Access Board that would be definitive about their interpretation of that location requirement. It isn't just restricted to site location. There are other components that have to be met, other aspects within the code that have to be met, that certainly could be interpreted that all units should not be on at grade level. In any case, beyond what a code requirement is, I think it's kind of obvious in a development of this scale. If it truly is the intent that there are no elevators in any of the buildings, I think given the likely mix of families in this development, I think there are something like 200. There are 300 units. The number is in here, but it's more than a couple hundred possible bedrooms that could be inhabited by children. Even beyond that, just simple day-to-day activities, groceries, carrying groceries in, everything else. In some of these buildings, it would be a 4-story walk-up from where you park the car. So my recommendation is for just broadening accessibility to the building, there may be an exemption that is available. But to demonstrate that, I would argue that they should seek an advisory opinion from the Architectural Access Board. Other comments I made, which are again kind of normal where the development of these drawings is. I think there's a very good chance that the way that site is organized, that the larger buildings in the central part of the site, it's conceivable they would barely be visible from the public way. It's a little hard to tell from the materials we have. There's very little three-dimensional information. In the drawings, I suggested a couple of on-site sections that could be provided, as well as some perspective views from Commerce. Another probably top of the heap missing exhibit is a landscape plan. There is a rendered site plan, but that's not the same as a landscape plan. A landscape plan that has a higher degree of specificity. It also includes the developer's intention, or delineates areas that are scheduled for preservation. Obviously, in this development, most of the site will be clear cut to build it, but it is good to know what is proposed to be preserved and any protection measures that would need to be taken to not damage any off-site materials, particularly on the side of the town forest, I would think. A couple other issues. I guess I want to tag on one thing for what was said earlier tonight about the EV spaces. It is something that is coming. Everybody knows it's coming. The building code hasn't really caught up with it of how to handle large numbers of EV spaces. But I just second the need for really knowing what the count is and where the spaces are proposed. I think in most multifamily developments these days, developers are looking at ways to ensure that the infrastructure that they install, specifically the size of the electrical service transformer, and whether they're introducing the load management systems to support larger numbers of EV spaces than what you would see today. That's not going to go away. It's only going to increase. Another important missing piece of documentation is none of the building elevations have material call-outs on them. Clearly, that's an important thing for the board to know. What are these buildings really clad in? I think I really won't go. There really are a lot of bullet points. I apologize that you only received this letter yesterday. I'm sure the applicant needs some time to respond to all of this. And I have seen the responses to other peer reviewers. I would suggest that if the board is interested in organizing a working session to go through some of these ideas, that is very common.
So we could do a working session with you and Mill Creek?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah. From my read on what the communications I've seen, they seem to be amenable to adaptation. One other just overlap piece is in my report also I cited that second means of egress. I am curious about how that will shake out. I think there are a couple of ways to do it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what their what their proposal is on that. I think it may be better rather than me droning on. Open this up for question.
I'd agree.
Okay. I'll shut up. You just ask me whatever you
Cliff,
want.
real quick, eliminating building 10 would reduce how many units there? I'll have the plans.
That'd be 6 of the townhouse units.
Okay.
So the number I have, Cliff, is, it will be 510 bedrooms.
550.
Oh, 550? My math is wrong.
That's 550.
550.
Yes, 250 bedrooms that potentially could be occupied by children, which doesn't mean there are going to be 250 children there. I'm sure the developer knows their market a lot better than I do. But still, that's part of my rationale for expanding the green space. One other thing, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention is there's also, and these plans are very schematic, and I've worked with this architect on many projects, so I know they know what they're doing. The plans, however, at this point show no accommodations for bicycles. No bicycle storage, no protected indoor spaces for residents, bike racks for visitors. Nowadays, that's very, very common request. It's embodied in many of the Commonwealth cities and towns zoning bylaws at this point. But it's just another recommendation among many other bullet points included in the letter.
All right. So do we have any questions from the board?
Not right now.
All right.
All right, now, it seems like all of these plans, nothing is quite complete yet.
Yeah.
Peer reviews.
Did you have anything else, Ed?
But the only other thing I was going to mention, that Cliff referred to the comment I made about EV charging stations. So many communities are looking at understanding that there's growth in that market, right? I mean, if gas gets even more expensive, there'll be a lot of growth in that market, right? But let's hope that doesn't happen forever. But EV parking, charging stations and EV-ready parking spaces, and as Cliff mentioned, the forethought to think of the load centers for the transformer design to handle that, but have conduit ready for that. I would suggest the applicant think of both of those categories. So proposed EV charging stations, and at some level, and then EV-ready parking spaces for future charging stations.
And this development's interesting because of there's a variety of parking options for the residents, many of which are inside their own garages. And I've imagined those in the bigger multifamily buildings, or some of those are in garage spaces too. And so people, I presume, will be leasing those parking spaces. So in a situation like that, that would kind of be the dedicated, at least EV-ready space. So it could actually add up to quite a few spaces that could really really match the needs of the residents, if not now, maybe 10 years from now.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I would just suggest, since Derek Roach from Vanessa & Associates is here on Zoom, and he's willing to go through the list of traffic improvements were made in the last project, I think we should at least review that.
Yeah, sure, we'll hear him.
For the board.
Go ahead, Derek.
Happy to. Happy to. Derek Roach from Vanessa & Associates. So we sent over, I don't know if we have the table up anymore, it was up before.
Which one are you looking for?
It
Two-pager.
It should say Modera Marshfield.
The one Nancy just brought over.
There it is. There it is.
That one right there, yeah. All right, so there was a number of improvements from that project at 4 different intersections, 2 on Route 139 here. The first 139 at Enterprise Drive, Fox 1, design and implement optimized traffic signal timing, phasing, and coordination plan. And I'll just say at the beginning, the status of all of these improvements is complete as of June 21st, 2022. But we'll just quickly run through what's been done as well. So that a Route 139 at Furnace Street and Proprietors Drive. The first improvement there was to conduct the RSA Out of that RSA were a number of short-term improvements that were suggested. 1 through 7 here, all of them have been implemented. Again, they include optimal traffic signal timing phasing plan. For this one, that includes implementation of split phasing for Furnace Street and Proprietors Drive, as well as evaluation of the yellow and all red clearance intervals, and updating the pedestrian clearance interval, the flashing don't walk time to reflect current standards. Installation of dotted left turn lane extension markings for Furnace Street, Proprietors Drive left turn movements, relocation of the Furnace Street stop line and vehicle protectors closer to the intersection to improve sight lines. Installation of the no turn on red signs on Furnace Street and Route 139 eastbound approaches. Clean, repair, replace the left turn signal indication for the Route 139 westbound approach. Remove and replace the lane use on Furnace Street approach to reflect the correct lane designations. Installation of advanced school crossing sign on 139 and Furnace Street approaching the intersection. And on the next page, 2 other locations that they have improvements at. They have Proprietors Drive at Commerce Way and Old Woodlot Lane. Here they're just installed marked crosswalk and constructed accompanying ADA compliant wheelchair ramps for crossing of Proprietors Drive in Old Woodlot Lane. Installed stop sign and marked stop line on Proprietors Drive approach to the intersection. Excuse me. And the last intersection that they had improvements at is Enterprise Drive at Commerce Way. Here again, they installed crosswalks and constructed accompanying ADA compliant wheelchair ramps for crossing Enterprise Drive. They installed the stop bar and stop line on Commerce Way approach. And they constructed the missing segment of sidewalk that's approximately 110 linear feet. They also had traffic reduction strategies that they were required to implement. All of those have been implemented with the one caveat that Mass Rides has ceased operations, so those programs have ceased. So the first one was become a Mass Rides employer partner, so that one's not going on anymore. They still have the available information regarding public transportation services, maps, schedules, and fare information. They provide the orientation packets to new residents detailing the available public transportation services, bicycle and walking alternatives, and commuter not that one. Mass Rides again. So they don't have commuter options through Mass Rides, but they do have their new ride program. They inform residents of the emergency ride home. Well, that's also Mass Rides, so they don't have that one. Provide secure bicycle parking, and consult with the GRA about possibility of providing bus service to the project site. So as I said, all of the roadway and signal improvements have been implemented as of June 1st, 2022, and the applicable traffic management strategies are still ongoing as of
Okay, so would you be willing to work with us, with Cliff, with a working group?
I'm not sure it's really ripe for that. I think we're at a place where we've gotten a lot of input from your peer reviewers, including Cliff now, and that's obviously a lot to digest. And we're working to consider all of these things and probably coming back to you with definitely coming back to you with some updated plans. I can't promise you what changes otherwise will be in them. So I think we need to do that.
First, okay.
Yeah, and actually, I know it's late. I don't know how late you guys have any energy for going, but we'd love to have some discussion by the board, some questions by the board, something to give us some sense of what you guys are thinking after all the input from our team and your teams, and maybe that's not tonight, maybe that's 2 weeks from tonight, but we'd like to be able to take that into consideration as we're thinking about plan revisions.
Okay, well, I'd like to hear from the audience as well.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Somehow I feel like I'm in a different time zone here.
You did name and,
Ernie Dupuy, 6 Weathervane Lane. Can we go back to that chart there that was on there first with some of the things that were supposedly implemented that are in
Andrew,
place?
can you give us the first page of that?
I'm not going to go through all of them, but certainly some of them. The traffic signal for the left-hand turn signal coming out of, I think it's Proprietor's Drive to take a left-hand turn with a left-hand arrow. There is none there. There's no left-hand arrow there. There are also no painted lines there to determine what lane you're in. And that was supposedly done. It isn't done, unless it was done since I left my house at 6:30 today. It wasn't done before, it isn't done now. I don't know who's telling you this, don't know what they're getting paid to say this. It's an absolute fallacy.
Can I interrupt? Which area are you saying?
Coming
is
out
not-
of Roach Brothers to take a left-hand turn.
Yeah.
There is no left-hand arrow there, and there is no left-hand arrow or marking yellow on the highway.
On the road, like so.
On the road.
So you're saying like a dotted line going into the
None,
street? Yeah, so-
none, absolutely not, absolutely not.
Why don't we just ask the gentleman right there where he got that information?
I'm sorry?
Why don't we just ask him where he got that information?
That would be good to find
Oh,
out.
wait,
I think we have
it was just, Andrew, you were just at that intersection. Why don't you go back to that intersection?
Which intersection?
Roach Brothers. 139.
Oh my God.
And if you could,
Could I clarify?
yeah,
Sorry, David.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Clarify.
Board, Tim Alexander with Mill Creek Residential, and I apologize for the confusion. I think we do need to clarify specifically this intersection as it relates to the summary that was sent over. And I don't have the final comprehensive permit from Madera Marshfield in my possession, but my recollection of that intersection, so 139 and Proprietors, was that the applicant, Mill Creek, was to provide design and then contribution towards those improvements to the town. But because of all the other potential changes that could happen at that intersection that weren't settled yet, the design and the contribution was handed over to the town for them then to proceed with MassDOT to implement. And so I believe that's the status, and I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what happened since that time, but I do know that the improvements were designed, contribution was made, and then I believe the town and the DPW wanted to handle it from there because, again, of all the other things that were happening at that, or potentially happening at that intersection.
Okay.
We can confirm that and get back to you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
The traffic issue has been a problem, continues to be a problem. It's going to get worse. The proposal that they have come up with is 117 one-bedroom units, 116 two-bedroom units, 67 three-bedroom units, a total of 300 units, total of 550 bedrooms, and assuming we have 1.5 people per bedroom, that breaks down to 775 additional people coming in there. I have to laugh when I heard earlier that the proposed peak weekday vehicle trips in and out of there would be 150. There are currently, and yeah, maybe I have a lot of time on my hands because I'm retired. There are currently, as of last night, in the outside parking lot of Modera Phase 1, over 250 cars parked outside. That's not counting cars parked inside that I don't see. Now, unless only 1/3 of those cars is leaving that area a day, 75 in, 75 out, there's your 150 peak travel. So the other 200 cars are not leaving, they're sitting in the driveway. Who are we trying to kid here? That's ridiculous. There are 225 cars going in and out of there every day that I saw just from the parking lot. And that's just Phase 1, which is a smaller scale down of this version on a larger geographical area in terms of square footage. So let's be realistic, let's be honest in terms of this proposal. 300 units, 775 people, and we're gonna have only an additional 150 cars, peak travel. I mean, somebody is not looking with their eyes open here. We really need to see, what is that? Water usage for those 775 people. Hasn't changed since it was 5 years ago. Geographical study, 70 gallons per person per day breaks down to 54,250 gallons of additional water every day up at that new unit if it's put in. 54,000 gallons a day. Do we have the capacity to do that? And what's that going to do to our pressure, which is already diminished tremendously? Those people who have a second floor unit up on Seth Sprague and those have already noticed a drop in water pressure. What is this going to do now? And what in the event of a fire, when you hook the hose up and the water comes out and doesn't even reach the building? Safety issues, traffic, safety issues, fire, safety issues, children crossing that street. I'm not thinking just about old people like myself. Y'all include myself if you want. Trying to cross there and make a left-hand turn safely. I'm talking about kids crossing from the high school and middle school over to the Boys and Girls Club and back. That's a huge safety issue, huge. Let's not make this community the next Uvalde. Instead of a gun some kid gets killed with, it's a car because it wasn't properly safety oriented in terms of the traffic. That's a huge issue. I think these are things that we need to look at with eyes wide open and realistically. This is a nightmare from day one.
Anyone else from the public? Name and address?
12 Old Little Lot Lane. I just want you guys to think about when they were doing the phase one, they put a 6-foot chain link fence around the sidewalk, so you were forced to walk on the street. Then the tradespeople that were doing the job, of course, parked on the street on both sides. So you had cars, you had trucks, and you had people walking on the street. Now you got with Modera Run, you've got a lot more people down there walking. So something to think about and what you guys want to do.
Sorry, can I just get your name for the record again? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
What was your name again? I didn't catch it. I'm sorry.
Jerry Allen.
Jerry Allen, okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, when I attended the last meeting, Attorney Feeney had asked, in regards to their other units, the public transportation, and I think this gentleman that just did the presentation, it doesn't seem as though they have taken in consideration. We don't have anything in Marshfield for public transportation, so that's unrealistic. And I think, Attorney Feeney, didn't you ask for them to present to you something on the lines of, so that I think we were all, and we still are.
Whether they had any knowledge of any public transportation coming to Marshfield.
Yes.
And because most of the other sites that they had mentioned were on public transportation and assistance. And there's absolutely the gap here. I don't know who uses the gap bus, I don't know. So there's absolutely none in Marshfield, so, yeah, I did ask that question.
I also need to say that we all refer to Modera, and no, it's Madison, because they've already sold it, so that their investment in the town lacks as far as within the first year that they built Modera, which is no longer Modera, it's Madison. It's owned by somebody else. So I'm not feeling an investment by their firm.
So can I just have your name?
Casper, 17 Snowdale.
Anyone else?
Couple more comments. In the process of building this development, there were like 16 acres of land in there, I think, that it's built on. And I averaged it out. No, I didn't walk and count trees on the number of acre, but I did an estimate of approximately 200 trees per acre. Okay? They took down over 6,000 trees to build that complex. What is that doing to our water runoff in that entire system? 6,000 trees, think about it. It was like a logging forest going on up there. Trees piled on one after another. And yeah, they replaced trees, and I did go around and count those today. There were about 250 trees that they replaced. So they took out 6,000 and replaced it with about 250. That's not a fair swap. That's got to impact groundwater runoff. It's got to impact our water thing. There's an aquifer not far from there called Mount Scargo. People, I'm sure you have heard about it. And I'm concerned about all the water runoff in the septic. In the plan that I see up here, I didn't see anything that even showed a septic system up in there. So I don't know where that is going. But I think these are so many issues here that need to be addressed with regard to all of these things. It's just, I don't know, it just, I'm upset because of the safety issue, water issues, fire, all these things. I think it's just a massive building that is way out of proportion to the size of the town, the density of that. And you as a board, and I've looked up, okay, 40B information. You have the right, okay, to turn these issues down and to insist, okay, conditions and requirements in respect to such as height, density, site plan, utility improvements, long-term affordability. You have the right to turn this building, this whole complex down. And the other thing is, I question as well, is the developer has to come from one of three phases. A public agency, which they're not, a nonprofit organization, go on their website, they make quite a bit of profit, or a limited dividend company. I don't believe they fall into any of those three categories. So I'm wondering, why are we even listening to this proposal so horrendous when I don't believe they meet any of the requirements to even build it? Or at least ask for a variance in the zoning.
Real quick with that too, Pat Brennan, as he said earlier, is addressing the water and the drainage issue. He had some concerns there and wasn't completed with his report, but he is addressing that.
And he mentioned the pumping as well.
Yeah, no, Pat did mention all that earlier in his presentation. And he's been involved in this for that area, that park, for quite a while. We're fortunate to have somebody who's knowledgeable, him, doing it.
Bob, you?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that this entity will, once it signs the regulatory agreement, will be a limited dividend organization.
It's actually formed with that language in its organizational documents.
So that's how it qualifies to be an applicant for a project like this.
Okay, thank you.
Until it's sold?
It's still, this entity will always be a limited dividend organization. It's going to be all rentals, right? This is all rentals.
Yeah. It's in the regulatory agreement that Mass Housing, in this case, will monitor and enforce, and that runs with the land, so it will be applicable to future owners also.
So they would never be able to be sold as individual units? They'd always be a rental? Forever?
No, the certain amount of units will always be affordable.
Right. Right. We have no plans to convert them, but even if they are converted and sold, there's still all that, in this case, all that being a limited dividend entity means is that you have to rent the units at a certain, in our case, you have to rent or sell the units at a certain price. And if there's more profit than whatever the amount is, and it's different for rentals than it is for condos, but if there's more profit than the state allows, that has to go into reserve for the project and be used for project-related things.
Does the board have anything else?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh, this is Janine Armistead, One Snowy Owl in Marshfield. I'm just curious if there's been any discussion or what's being addressed for capacity issues within Martinson or some of the Marshfield schools as it relates to this project?
Have we done anything?
It's not a appropriate, under the regulations, that's not an appropriate consideration.
We did agree on our last meeting to provide some information on that.
We can get you the information that's readily available from the school department about the other project, but in terms of what the regulations say can be taken into consideration for a 40B development, school kids, isn't it?
We did have that same discussion
Yep.
last time.
Yep, I was watching.
Go ahead.
One final comment. I can't believe in this day and age that the American Disabilities Act, they've been in what, around for 25, 30 years. We're building buildings that are for public housing such as this without installing an elevator.
Yep.
I didn't realize that until the last meeting. It was like, I must be in another world. That can't be right. To have that come about in this day and age is unfathomable to me. And I thought, well, okay, they're putting them on the first floor. If you're wheelchair bound or whatever, maybe you're putting on the first floor. What if you're living on the third floor and you have a knee replacement? How do you get out of the building? Or what if you don't have the knee replacement, but your father or son is in a wheelchair? How do they get up to visit you? I mean, seriously, has anybody put any forethought into this? Building a building today of those sizes without elevators? I mean, maybe I'm just living in another world, but this just seems unfathomable and unconscionable, to be honest with you.
Do we have anything else?
I just have a comment.
Yeah, I have a comment. Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah, Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. Previous comments by the gentleman about basically related to the hydrogeology on the site. I understand Mr. Brennan may be looking at it, but a good point was made that since the development of the area, and since we don't have information on the wells that they claim they're going to use to irrigate this new project, and we have no information on the septic system and its discharge, that's really got to be, those questions have to be answered. We need a better picture of the hydrogeology on the site. According to the environmental site assessment that was done for this project, they just suppose that the groundwater is basically flowing north to south towards the Arnold Reservoir, which you can see there in the lower left corner of that screenshot right there. I don't know that that supposition has been borne out or can be proven. I don't know where the irrigation wells are going to be. We don't know where the septic system is going to be and what the potential interaction between those two features is going to be. The other thing I want to know is you touched upon the conservation management permit earlier, and you said the obligations have been met. And I'm not sure what was meant by that. All I can see in the documents that are online is that the phase 1 mitigation requirements were still up in the air. And I want to know first, have mitigation requirements been met under the NHESP program? And also, where is the amended CMP, Conservation and Management Plan? So those are two things. Have the mitigation requirements been met for the development of this lot? And two, where is the amended Conservation Management Plan?
Can you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, we have confirmation from the state that those mitigation requirements have been met. We can provide that.
I think we have
And
provided
where
it.
is-
And so it should be on, Nancy, is it? I think it's probably on, because we submitted it.
It was included as attachment to our comprehensive permit submittal.
Was it one of the earlier submittals?
Yes.
The first
That
one.
should be online.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
it's
the
actually.
more recent
Joe, it
ones are
seems
not
like that
online.
piece is online.
Well, the
Oh my
most
God.
recent one I saw was dated December 2021. Is that the one you're talking about?
It could be.
That's the letter, the letter of
email?
compliance, yeah. I think
First,
that,
email.
yeah, that was the email compliance. The amended permit was from 2019, but the email confirms that the condition, that the mitigation has been complied with. But there's no,
Do you know if
there's
the-
no further amended permit.
So I,
Okay, I don't see an amended permit, number one, and number two, do you know what the mitigation requirement was? Or is?
Yeah, I don't know, Brian, you want to go through that, but there's a whole list of mitigation requirements, including the payment of some money and creation of habitat someplace else. But that's all, the amended permit from 2019, which does not need to be further amended, was in our initial application, so that's on the on the town's website with our initial application.
There.
I'm not so sure about that, but my concern is that the initial mitigation requirement, which goes back to the year 2005, called for conservation restrictions on 57 acres of land. And if that's not available, then a payment of $110,000. So I don't know if which one of those things has been fulfilled. Has any land been subjected or given a conservation restriction in Marshfield or in the region, or has $110,000 been spent? According, a payment of $110,000 been made.
Hold on, Joe, we have an answer here.
The funding contribution has been met.
Okay, so for all this development, we're not, it sounds like you're saying there's been no land that's been preserved or put under a conservation restriction, and $110,000, which is 2005 basically a rate. Imagine what if you had $110,000 that you were required to pay in 2005, what would that be in today's dollars? So boy, we're really getting the short end. If all we had to do, if all the developers had to do was pay $110,000 according to the bill that was given them in 2005, which probably hasn't been adjusted, and that money is supposed to be used to acquire conservation restrictions on other properties around the region. How much property do you think you could buy for $110,000? So, you're using $110,000 to meet the conservation management plan mitigation requirements, and it's just outrageous. And I'm not saying it's the developer's fault. It would be NHESP's fault if they didn't change or adjust that requirement. So imagine no land was preserved, okay, and $110,000 according to the number arrived at in 17 years ago was paid. And that's what we get. That's our commitment to preserving the environment. Unbelievable.
Thank you, Joe.
When was that 110 paid? When was the 110 paid, do you know?
I think it was broken out, I don't have specific dates.
A while ago?
It was broken out over 15 years. So there you go, And then for the chairman, I have to say, Mr. Chairman, to refer to turtles as being a problem, you have to remember that the turtles themselves, and why Marshfield, if I just can make a brief statement, why Marshfield is a hotbed, as they say, for this turtle preservation activity, is because we have an environment that supports a broad range of wildlife. We have wetlands adjacent to uplands. It's not the turtle itself that's the important thing. It's the existence of a diverse environment that allows a lot of different species to thrive here.
It was just, the question was, in the many years that this has gone on, they found one live turtle and one dead one. So that was the question. I think that's self-explanatory.
No, it's not self-explanatory because you don't have the turtle monitoring reports and you don't know what kind of turtles it's talking about. And I know from my own experience that these surveys under the NHESP are often lacking. But again, it's the environment that we're losing. One last point. There is a piece of conservation land next to this proposed development. What's going to be done to protect that? Are we going to have kids from this proposed development going off into the woods, having campfires and everything? The environmental site assessment that was done and mentioned some of the land around there was very faulty. They did not reference all the dirt roads and pathways that exist all through that area. They said they found some sofas and a few discarded appliances, but a site that has got dirt roads in it and pathways all through it, you don't know what could have gone on in there, who could have driven in there, and what they could have dumped. Again, no subsurface exploration done, no hydrogeological evaluation done, a lot of question marks, and it was, to me, just a very glossed over type assessment.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for your time.
Make a quick comment.
Yes.
The man to my right
This is-
mentioned that it's up to the
Her name?
board to look for future affordability. And right now, I'm getting emails from Madison that they want $2,800 for a one-bedroom unit and $4,800 for a three-bedroom unit a month. So that doesn't connect in my mind with affordability.
I understand, but I believe, as they would explain, is that is set by the state for where we live.
Correct.
Yes, for the affordable units.
Yeah.
$5,000.
And if you use a wheelchair, you don't have an option to go on floor number 2, 3.
Mr. Chairman, could you ask her name?
Oh, could I get your name for the record?
Oh, Deborah Woods.
Deborah Woods. All right, so Nancy, when is our next meeting?
Next meeting is the 28th.
28th, okay.
I cannot be here in person, I can be here via Zoom.
Zoom,
The
okay.
12th.
That one pretty heavy already, the 28th?
All right.
The next one
Do you
after
have
that's
any
the
other
12th.
questions for us, or?
What's on
I
that?
think if
I
we should
think
just
we have
talk
like
about
4
what to
new
do
ones.
on the 28th.
Not a lot of new ones.
I think,
We've
It's
got a
12,
couple
yeah.
I
tonight.
think the 12
I
sounds
understand
better.
people are done booked tonight.
I like the
But I
12
think
better,
maybe
too.
on the 28th, if we can have some more
So that and the
discussion.
school,
I know
will that
you've
be too
also got a
much?
full agenda, so maybe we just
I
have
don't
a
think
short
so.
window.
We also have to.
You guys have some
have solar
discussion
tonight,
or
so then we
ask
also-
us things you want
Maybe
us
if
to
we can
think
get
about.
some,
Would, Brian, excuse me, would the 12th be better if we have less of an agenda? Would that be better for you? Would all the peer reviews
Next
be
week?
able to be in at that point?
no, the 12th
The
of
12th of
July.
July.
No, I think, well, so here's what we're suggesting, is that we've actually gotten a lot of feedback from the public, from your consultants, from your departments, questions from the board that we're trying to incorporate into our thinking about potentially revising plans. So we could go off and do that with what we have now, but I think we'd be more effective if we had some feedback from the board as well about sort of, what your thoughts are, having had time to digest your peer reviews and what you're hearing from the public. And
Well, I
have
think
that
the density
inform-
definitely is a big issue, especially the size of the original project and now this one. I mean, I think Greg Guimond did it, correlating the size of the land to what was considered the density on the other piece, and now here we are at, 550. The last one had 473 beds. This one has 550, so it's a big difference. And I think and the parcel's almost half the size. So I think that has to be addressed with that density.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, okay, I hear you. And I think that's one of the questions that all of your peer reviewers have been
Right.
trying to get at, about what are the impacts from this project specifically as proposed.
Well, I think it's hard to say that the other one, I think, was 22 acres, this is 12, and we had 473 beds in the other one, we have 550 here.
Right.
The density just doesn't mathematically work out.
We hear what you're saying.
And you're the ones that gave us the standard for the density. You went from 270 down to, you originally had 493 beds, and you went 494, you went down to 773. So-
Yeah, I think what you'll hear from us also as we discuss potential changes is that every site is different. It's not just about how many acres and how many units. It's about what's physically on the property and how does it lay out and what are the impacts from that density. So it's not, the focus from our perspective, and I think from the state's perspective under 40B, isn't just on numbers, it's on what are the impacts of those numbers. And so that's, frankly, why in particular hearing from your consultants about the impacts being able to be mitigated, or Mr. Bomer suggesting that, this might not even be visible from the public way. I think it's important just to keep in mind, I'm not saying we won't consider what you're asking us to consider, but just keeping in mind that it's not a number in and of itself, it's what are the impacts.
I think for us, it's going there and physically seeing on the ground the first project, the space between it, the open areas, and then seeing what this represents, because it's
Okay.
just very dense.
We hear you.
So the impact to us, Marshfield, or the impact to you guys, or who's the impact on?
Well, it's impact like traffic and stormwater and all the issues that we've been talking about, architecture. So on everybody, on the neighborhood, on the surrounding area, and that's what your peer reviewers have been reviewing, was
Right.
what we had to look at and what your peer reviewers have been looking at.
I mean, for me, I need additional time to digest all of this information. So I don't even want to say anything. I do think it's too big. I'm just going to put that on the table. Too big. But I need time to review all of this personally, so I don't know if anybody else, besides Brian and I.
Does anyone else have anything to say before we leave?
No, I just had a follow-up on for the next meeting, and
Oh, it is, we are on,
some more feedback.
yeah, so we were on for the 28th, right, Nancy?
12th July?
Make it the 12th, because Judy can't be there.
Oh, are we on for the 12th?
But that's okay. If you can't, who can't be here? You, Ed?
I can be here
You can be
via
on
Zoom.
Zoom. I think that's fine. If the next meeting is really you guys like doing what you suggested,
I just want to be able to give fair
and
consideration
give
to
some,
everything.
right, and give
personally.
some feedback. I think Ed on Zoom is fine.
I think I can be here on the 12th, I just can't be here on the 28th.
What is the deal? What do we have on the 28th? I mean, what's going on?
Let's see. I'd personally like to have as much of the
There are
peer review completed in
4
hand
new ones on the 28th.
view
Plus,
Couple
at that
continued.
meeting, you know?
I
Or
think.
prior to, not the day of, you know, I'd like to have it a little
Well,
bit
the
ahead of time.
re-advertisement,
Right,
how
well, I
long,
think
that'll
you've
take
got
till the
most things
12th, right?
down.
I think
Yeah.
we should do the
Um,
Why do we have to re-advertise
What
them?
you all think of the various reviews.
Yep.
For civil.
Oh, Jay Creed has to be, well, he has to submit it.
I think the 12th.
So it sounds like.
But we don't have to re-advertise them.
No, I know, but Jay Creed does. I'm just saying, so it sounds like you just want, at our next meeting, for us to give you the feedback, how we feel
Yeah.
about what we've digested here.
Right.
And you're gonna be working on your side to come up with a different comprehensive plan.
I wouldn't say different, but we'll make some changes that we already
Adjusted.
agreed to make.
Yeah.
We're considering a secondary access. We'll consider the other things that you ask us to consider, and then we'll come back to you. So it sounds like in terms of timing, maybe we come back and do that on the 28th.
And that way you then.
And then after that, we
take that
can
information.
take that information and submit plans to the board. We could do a little caucus about how much time we think that's gonna take, so you guys
Right.
you and your peer reviewers have time to review whatever we submit, and then
That
come
sounds
back in
good.
You have to
July.
come from peer reviewers.
Yeah, so Nancy, let's leave it on the 28th.
Right,
Well, that's fine.
but at least, you're right, Heidi, but at least if they're gonna come back, did I hear you say you were going to give them an update on some of the design changes you're contemplating?
No, because we
No, they
want
wanna
their
know
input
what we
first.
want for
Okay,
design.
so then that on the 28th would certainly be appropriate. I wouldn't need to be here, I'll just be on Zoom for questions and answers.
They're just looking for our input on the 28th.
Right, and then I think it's a great idea for them to come back to you afterwards, after they
Correct,
caucus,
after the
as she says, you know, what time they need to do that, because you've heard now from your architectural peer reviewer, we still haven't resolved what input from the fire department's gonna generate for changes. That would be a good thing to come back
Scheduled already?
from them after that meeting. So,
Would it work to schedule us also for the 12th, so we make sure we have time on that agenda to come back to you with our thoughts?
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Why don't we do that too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So both.
Thank you.
So we get 2 meetings scheduled, and that's the 28th and the 12th.
We appreciate that.
I just had a quick question on the public transportation issue. Did you guys have any follow-up?
Hold on, he's, Steve's speaking.
Sorry, Brian. Was there any follow-up? Did you see if there's any public transportation that's anticipated, that's coming?
We don't have any knowledge.
But this is the only project that isn't on public transportation that you guys have in Massachusetts? Are there others?
No, absolutely not.
What are the other ones that aren't?
Concord, for one.
Hopkinton,
Hopkinton, Needham.
Natick.
Needham has public transportation, Natick has
Yeah,
public transportation.
but not necessarily, not where the site is.
Have it in the
Natick doesn't have, I don't know if there's a bus that goes by Natick.
Might be a bus.
Yeah, Natick has public transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a train there, yeah.
Marshfield has none.
Yep.
All those other towns you talk about do have it, and some of them are right on the MBTA line, so.
Yep. that
I just
is
don't know what.
a true
why
statement.
this place,
The solar,
not the other ones, but we'll find the answers out. I'm done, that's all.
Do we have any update on when the state is gonna give us our numbers?
I tried to find out more information today, got nothing.
Wait, on what, Chris? What was that?
An update on
Getting
the
us
state?
on our numbers.
I have
Yeah.
a conflict on the 12th, but I'll see what I can work out. Just looked at my calendar. It's been scheduled for a month, Cape Cod Commission. But we'll figure something out. Who knows what we'll end up doing for sure that
Well,
night.
for now, let's make a motion to continue to the 28th.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Two questions. Will those meetings be open to the public? Oh, Maureen O'Malley, 12 Oakwood Lodge.
All the meetings are open to the public.
No, but I mean for
Comment.
comments.
Questions and comment?
Questions and
For
comments?
comment,
they make
will you
questions?
allow public comment?
Oh, at the next meeting?
Yeah.
I'm always going to allow public comment.
Okay.
I want to hear from you.
No, last time. And the second is for them. So out of all the communities that you have built in, how many of those have you gone back to do a phase 2?
I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know?
I don't know.
In Massachusetts, do you know?
I don't think any in Massachusetts.
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How lucky can we get?
So, motion to continue to the 28th at 6:30. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Corbin's, yeah.
Okay. How do you call me now?
Steve Fanny?
Thank you.
Brian,
Thank you.
we still have Commerce, Solar.
Yeah, I know,
Okay,
the
okay.
solar, yeah.
I didn't forget about you.
All right,
Oh, you still have another.
we have 2236 Patrick Conley.
Yikes.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Kirsten.
Thought I saw him here.
I gotta get myself one of those.
This is it. This is the last one. Come on, Bob, suck it up.
Want the rest of my iced tea?
So Patrick Conley, this is a continued one, right? So I don't
Yes.
have to read it. Commerce Way. And we have the updated version of the, this stuff here. How you doing?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Good.
All right. So I'm Patrick Conley from Beals Associates, representing Galehead. I believe Cam Knowles and Lucas Faria from Galehead are attending via Zoom in case we have any questions. So I outlined 3 potential topics for tonight. I think given the time and all that, I'd like to scrap the third one. I'm sure everyone's okay with that. But the first is the peer review comments and then our responses. And then the second one is we have a proposition for the board and like to see if you have any feedback on a potential basin near Commerce Way. I think, Andrew, if you don't mind, if you have the presentation, that might be a little easier just because I included some graphics and that way it's just not all text. Thank you. Cool. So if you go to slide 3, we start with the first comment. Basically, Mr. Brennan was suggesting that we should have a 40-foot rear setback on the lot lines opposite of Commerce Way. And we dug into this, and so this is our interpretation based on the definitions of some of the lot lines. So if you see in the italicized on a corner lot, the owner shall designate one street line as a front lot line for the purpose of determining what line will be designated as the rear line. And then a rear lot line is defined as a lot line most nearly parallel to, opposite, and furthest from a front lot line. And then through in the definition of a side lot line is any lot line that's not front or rear. So if you go to the next slide, when we looked at the site, our analysis was that we started with, there's 2 corners on the site. So on the left you have Enterprise Drive and Commerce Way. And so we designated, as the definition of the front lot line says, owner can designate Enterprise Drive as the front yard line. It has Adequate frontage, we're using that as the access to the inverter, so we thought that was appropriate. And so through our thought exercise here, if that's the front yard, that puts Commerce Way as a side yard, the other setbacks as side yards, and then Endeavor Circle as a rear yard, opposite front yard. So if you go to the next slide, we said, okay, well then we'll look at the second corner because this site has 2 corners, and again chose Endeavor Circle as a front yard since that's where we have our secondary access off of it. And then that makes Enterprise Drive a rear yard, and so our conclusion was that it kind of cancels out. If you go to the next slide, that's how we ended up with 2 front yards, which is what we show as 40 feet, and then Commerce Way in this thought exercise would be a side yard. However, I know there's a regulation, I think Andrew mentioned earlier tonight, that corners is both front setbacks. So that's why we showed a front setback on Commerce Way as well.
Okay.
So at the risk of kind of mishmashing, convoluting all these regulations, that was our thought process of let's do a front setback on 3 streets, but then the opposite lot lines there would be a side yards based on that thought exercise. And so that's how we ended up with the 20-foot setback at the end of the site. That's the most complicated response we have. The rest are pretty easy. If we go to the next one, this is a summary. Thanks. So number 2 is just a request to put a zoning table on the site plan. We did that, updated it with existing and proposed. Comment number 3. So this was talking about how they would be mounted into the site. The details haven't been worked out yet. Galehead usually brings on what they call an EPC, so it's engineering, procurement, and construction. Basically, how you can think about it is right now we're in the permitting phase, obviously, so we have permitting documents. They have 80%, 75% of the details worked out. And then if we get the site plan approval permit, it then goes to construction documents. And that's when Galehead would go out, bid out their EPC, and they would be responsible for all the construction details. That would be submitted, and I'll be required for a building permit. So what we're proposing here is that it be a condition of approval that these type of details, and I'll summarize this at the end. There's, I think, 4 responses. That there was a request for more details. We're saying we're happy to provide the details. We'd just rather do it at a date closer to construction when they have the right firms on board. So comment number 4. There was a discrepancy between the design criteria breakdown on the top right corner of the page and what we showed on the plan. We just enlarged what we drew on the plan to match the criteria. So now it's a 22 by 18 foot inverter pad. So we saw it just as a formality. Again, this can be tweaked. So the overall goal is to recharge 1 inch of runoff. So that can be tweaked with the EPC at a later date. And then number 5 is request for a full-size electrical diagram. Provided that with this letter and the updated site plan. Number 6 is the request or a clarification of this. Our intent is to keep the pavement on the site. So this is a clarification of if we would put the panels through the pavement or remove the pavement. Our intent is to keep the pavement on site, minimize any kind of disturbances or changes, and so the columns would be installed through the pavement. And we added notes to the plan saying that, and then any kind of details with that, again, would be worked out with the EPC. Number 7, another EPC comment. This is just a more specific operations and maintenance plan. Again, happy to do it. Galehead does it every project where they tailor it down to the specific site. It's just kind of a request that this be another condition of approval so that the EPC, when they're brought on board, they're the ones actually designing it, they're the ones actually installing it, so they'd be better equipped to outline that operations and maintenance plan. And number 8. This was a request for a detailed and itemized cost estimate Gail had said in the first public hearing that they always provide form of surety for removal, and we're happy to do that. It's required. We took some exception with the words detailed and itemized. That's not, neither one is shown in the zoning, but however, I quoted that Gailhead will provide a fully inclusive estimate of the costs. And obviously, we request this would also be a condition of approval as opposed to figuring that out right now where there's so much weirdness going on with inflation and, supply chains, and it would be more appropriate, in our opinion, to address this closer to construction and be more accurate numbers. And I believe there's a clause in the zoning that addresses for inflation from construction later on, like up to 150% of the cost. So that's still factored into the regulations. Number 9, I believe is the last one. It's reiterating that we said that the only lighting will be at the transformer and that it'll be shielded and dark sky compliant. Mr. Brennan recommended that's a condition of approval, and we have no problem with that. So the next slide is a summary of the 4 potential conditions of approval for the board to consider. Basically requesting that some of these details are worked out with the EPC prior to a building permit, and then reiterating about the dark sky compliant lighting. So I don't know if you want to pause here, if you have any questions on that. That was kind of section 1.
Yeah, real quick, if I could, with decommissioning of the site, would it be any type of, including decommissioning as you're going along? What I mean by that is these batteries must have a shelf life when one's gone, that they're removed from the property. So at the end of 20 years, we don't end up with 20 decommissioned batteries sitting there on the property, or any damaged or replaced solar panels, that they're removed in a timely fashion, that if they're taken out of service here, that they're removed from the site within, I don't know, a 30-day period or something.
Sure.
Along those lines. So we don't end up with a pile of used panels, a pile of used batteries that they're routinely removed. So at the end of a decommission, you don't have a ton of obsolete equipment there.
I don't know if Cam or Lucas wants to take that.
All right, what do you do? What do you do at other locations that you have?
Yep.
Yes, certainly. So that would be included in the operation and maintenance plan. I guess in addition to the decommissioning plan, we typically have to plan out. There's typically 2 inverter replacement times during the project, just based off the warranty of the inverters. But that'll be planned out with the EPC when we have to remove the inverters. Same thing with the batteries. The panels are a little more difficult because those are warranted for I think up to 35 years. But certainly when if a panel were to stop working, that would be part of the, we would remove that panel. It's usually only one in a series. It's not a whole batch of panels, and then replace it with another panel.
But as was stated earlier, you guys were saying that the technology has increased so quickly in this field that 5 years down the road, these panels may be obsolete and you got to remove them. And again, could we put that in the order of conditions that during this process that the site would have to be, maintained, no equipment stored, no out-of-use equipment on site?
We can, yep, sure.
Yep. You could say if anything that's removed has to be removed from the site and disposed of properly.
Okay.
Just to comment on that, I would think that, I understand your point, no objection to the condition, but you also have the sunk costs of you already installed the panels, so at some point, I know there's a threshold, I know you're talking about at 5 years, but at some point it's, hey, we invested in this,
We got it, yeah, no, I get that, but even with a 30-year warranty, things do break, they may get damaged, they may get vandalized, who knows, but again, I just don't want to see the town at the end of a 20-year period, that there's a lot of excess equipment left on the property.
Sure.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Public safety, is there any training being provided to the fire department that may need emergency access?
We haven't had any talks about training. When I talked to Deputy Corbo, he didn't seem like he had any concerns. And as for access, we have just the 2 gated accesses on Enterprise and on Endeavor. Otherwise, it's a perimeter fence. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, okay, no.
Is training something you've done in the past with any public safety entities? Like, have you guys done a project like this before?
I have not personally. Cam, I don't know if you have provided any training.
I'm assuming there's not an off switch. You know what I mean? Like, or there be any intervention a fire department could do unless the battery caught on fire, which I think it self-extinguishes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's hard to answer it exactly. I mean, there are things called a DC disconnect and an AC disconnect, which is essentially an off switch. What I don't know off the top of my head if there's multiple, but certainly if we want to schedule a time to take the fire chief around the site, that can certainly as well be another condition for the building permit.
I just had a question, like the last time you were here, said somehow you can reserve the electricity. There was a figure on there, and I asked you to kind of give us a, common man kind of what that figure meant. Did you do that?
Oh, I don't think so. That was for the how much electricity is generated.
Yeah, how much and saved and could be used.
Sure.
Just there was a figure up there. I had no idea what it meant and what it meant and.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check in on that
myself.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that.
All right. So do we want to move to continue this?
But I have just one brief topic for the second one. Andrew, if you don't mind going back to the presentation. So the next slide, there's this one area that is a depression along Commerce Way, and so we've kind of avoided it under the guise of keep existing conditions as is. And the conversation's come up a few times where, well, what if we level it off? There's so I'm talking about the area in the thick red line. What if we level it off and there's still room for the stormwater flow and storage in the dashed line? And so the next slide has photos of the two. And I guess the question to the board is, if we were to propose, grading at this point, does that constitute a refiling, or is that just a minor amendment that we continue?
Minor modification.
Okay. Okay, so then we'll likely follow up with another iteration of the site plan showing the full panel layout. And that's I'll save 3 for later.
Okay. So is that, Nancy, when could we continue these guys?
I think he'd be fine for the 28th too.
Okay.
Because I thought there were more new ones on the 28th. There are only 4. I thought there were 7.
All right. Get the plan in so that Pat Brennan can take a look at it again.
Yeah, so do you want to do the 12th then?
I
don't know how
can
much
get
time.
this plan to you tomorrow.
Okay.
If that works, yeah.
All right.
Pat's here. Could we confirm that'll give him enough time?
Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I can get that done. I can review that quick enough.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So motion to continue to the 28th at 6:30. Do I have a second?
Larry Keane, second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Mark Wall, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Hi, Conway, aye.
Chris Fellows is aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Do we have any more business, Nancy, or is that it?
We're good for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Can we make a motion to adjourn?
Larry Keane.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Joe Renzi, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Steve Feeney,